Hi guys, it's me, Chatter HDN. Welcome to race day at the Red Bull Ring for the Austrian Grand Prix of 2025. We've had a decent weekend so far. Qualifying yesterday was very exciting in the back end of the top 10 in terms of who ended up where. The front few positions, though, it kind of ended up as expected in terms of who got pole and who's looking quickest. But the grid definitely a bit different than I think a lot of us were expecting it to be. So I think we're definitely in for quite an interesting Grand Prix today in Austria. It should be a very hot one as well. The sun is out and it is very hot and dry, really, all across Europe at the moment. So yeah, it's going to be an interesting race. Again, strategically, we should see quite a few differences on the strategy in terms of who pits and who uses what compound of tire. So yeah, it should be, like I said, an interesting race. I'm not sure it's going to be the best of races in terms of overtaking. We will get obviously some overtaking because it is so easy to overtake here. 3 DRS zones that follow consecutively. But whether this is going to be a proper classic like we've had here before at the Red Bull Ring, we'll have to see ultimately when we get the race going in just under, as you can see on your screen, in just under 2 hours from now. But yeah, should certainly be a pretty interesting Grand Prix, at least when it comes to the fight outside of the podium positions. But I think it'll be, even for the win, a very interesting race, to be honest. But hello to you guys. That's obviously one thing I want to make sure I say before we go any further. Hope you're all doing well, no matter what part of the world you're in, what time zone you're in. Hope you're all doing as well as possible, given whatever circumstances you may be going through. And I hope you are all ready to join me today in watching along and enjoying the Austrian Grand Prix. Just so you know, my co-commentator, as usual, Niblo, will be joining me later. So he should be joining us in about an hour and 20 minutes or so. So yeah, he'll be joining us as well for this Austrian Grand Prix. And yeah, hope you guys are all well ahead of this race in Austria. But yeah, as usual, we're going to go through the usual race build-up, looking at what happened yesterday, the data from yesterday in terms of the sector times, the speed trap data as well, which does relate to what can happen today. And also, we'll get into the long run data from Friday just to see what teams are looking good with their race pace and what teams are maybe not looking so great on the longer runs. Obviously, I'll give my race prediction, my final race prediction ahead of the Grand Prix, and then we are going to get into strategy in terms of what Pirelli have said is the best race strategy for today. And I'll get into what I think the strategic possibilities are, especially for the front running teams in this Grand Prix. So yeah, we'll get into that in this build up. Of course, there is a poll running in the chat as usual, and I've asked you guys who will win the Austrian Grand Prix today. Will it be Lando Norris, Charles Leclerc, Oscar Piastri, or somehow from 7th on the grid, will it be Max Verstappen? Let me know in that poll before lights out, and right before we get into the race, probably 5 minutes or so before we get into the race, I will read out the results of who you guys have voted for as the most likely person to win the Austrian Grand Prix today. So yeah, make sure to vote in that poll in the next, say, hour and 50 minutes before we get to the Grand Prix itself. So yeah, that's the plan for this build up to the Grand Prix. And I think we'll just get straight into it and start with the results from qualifying. Lando Norris absolutely dominated qualifying yesterday, and let's be honest, he has dominated the weekend ever since he stepped into that McLaren in practice 2 after Alex Dunn did practice 1 in his place. Lando this has probably been his best weekend in terms of form and pace. He has been absolutely brilliant all weekend, and he was the only driver to do a 1:03 lap time and was half a second clear of the next best car, being Charles Leclerc in the Ferrari, who I thought did a really amazing job to end up on the front row. And you have to say both Ferrari drivers did a great job. And for once, Lewis Hamilton, I thought, had a good qualifying, a properly good qualifying, where he was right in there with his teammate and is in a good position considering the car he's driving as well. So, yeah, both Ferraris in good position and looking good. Oscar Piastri third. Piastri was screwed over a bit by the yellow flag that Pierre Gasly caused by doing a 720 spin on the pit straight. So Oscar would have ended up on the front row had it not been for that. But third it is, not a disaster considering Max Verstappen is down in 7th, and obviously his teammate is only a couple positions ahead of him. But it wasn't the greatest day yesterday for our championship leader. And then, Lewis Hamilton 4th. Again, I thought that was a good qualifying for him. One of the best qualifying sessions he's had this year. And then George Russell 5th. Mercedes were pretty disappointing in Q3. I think they could have ended up in the top 3 on the grid, but they just did not hook up a good enough lap ultimately when it mattered. Liam Lawson 6th on the grid for this Grand Prix. What a turnaround from Liam after, the way he started the season. Obviously getting dropped from Red Bull after 2 races, and then, had a load of races for Racing Bulls where he was absolutely terrible, but is now turning it around, which is great to see. So, Lawson 6th on the grid, just ahead of Max Verstappen in P7. Verstappen obviously was scuppered by the yellow flag. He probably would have ended up 3rd had it not been for that yellow flag. At least that's what his engineer, only for this weekend, Simon Rennie, said to Max on the radio. Given the sector times he was doing and the pace he was doing, it was probably going to be 3rd on the grid, which would have put him honestly in a pretty good position, given that he would have outqualified the championship leader Oscar Piastri and put himself in a good position to maybe fight for, maybe not the race win, but get a strong podium finish and maybe at least beat Piastri in the race. But he had to back off for the yellow flag, ended up in 7th, and I'm not going to say there's no chance of Max finishing on the podium, but I think he is going to need quite a bit of luck to get onto the podium today, because the Red Bull is not quick enough to go from 7th up to 3rd in a normal dry race. It just is not quick enough. Max is going to have to either do one of the best performances of his career, or again, he's going to have to get quite a bit of luck to help him get into those positions. It's yesterday's qualifying really did hurt Max's World Championship effort, because most likely Oscar Piastri is going to beat Verstappen today, and I still think Max Verstappen is Oscar Piastri's main championship rival. So as long as Piastri beats Max today, then even if Oscar doesn't win the race and finishes 2nd or 3rd, that is still I'd say a good weekend for Piastri, because I'm very confident that Piastri beats Lando Norris this season in the championship, given how much better Piastri has been and much more consistent Oscar has been as well. So, yeah, yesterday's qualifying absolutely was big for the championship because, again, I don't think Max can reverse the damage of what happened yesterday. Gabriel Bortoleto 8th, brilliant job by him. He was one of the stars of qualifying without doubt. Kimi Antonelli 9th, he was also screwed over, not by the yellow flag, but he didn't make the line in time to start his final run. Mercedes really messed that up. So yeah, Antonelli really hurt by that because he could have ended up 6th or 7th if he was allowed to do that final lap, but yeah, it wasn't to be. And then Pierre Gasly 10th. Gasly, very unlucky that he had that spin because in Q2, he did a 1 minute 4.8 lap time. If he had done that in Q3, Pierre Gasly would be starting from 6th in this race. So Gasly has a lot more pace than what he showed ultimately in Q3. So do not count out Pierre Gasly today. He has been brilliant this weekend, and I think will be very strong in the race today because if he can show the real pace of the Alpine, he should be a very strong midfield contender today. So yeah, Gasly, watch out for him in this race. It should have been a lot better of a qualifying than it ended up being in the end for him. But let's go on to the rest of the field. Fernando Alonso 11th, Aston Martin were very disappointing. Alex Albon 12th, really the best Albon and Williams could do. They've been just very slow this weekend. And then Isaac Hadjar 13th, Colapinto 14th, Behrman 15th, Stroll 16th, Ocon 17th, Yuki Tsunoda in 18th, Carlos Sainz in 19th. Awful performance, I have to say, from Sainz, even though that car has had its issues this weekend. And Nico Hülkenberg as well. Pretty poor performance from him, ending up last on the grid, whilst his teammate up in 8th. Yeah, quite the contrast. But, an interesting grid for this Austrian Grand Prix. Doesn't necessarily promise us a great race, but it is an interesting grid nonetheless. But let's get on to the sector time data to really understand why certain teams are quick this weekend and also to understand why the grid ended up the way it did. First sector isn't really important. McLaren were the quickest through this part of the lap. But yeah, it's not really important, this first sector. As long as you don't make a mistake, then yeah, your first sector is absolutely fine. The middle sector, though, really does show why the grid ended up the way it did. McLaren, firstly, a full quarter of a second quicker than the next car of the Red Bull of Max Verstappen. That is an incredible difference. And remember, that's 28.5 seconds, that middle sector. So to be quarter of a second clear in just that short sector is remarkable. It really is. And it shows you just how good this McLaren car is. It is easily the best car on the grid. Anyone who denies that at this point is just lying to themselves. But yeah, to be that far clear of Red Bull and Ferrari, it just this part of the lap is, again, absolutely incredible. But yeah, Red Bull and Ferrari on basically the same pace. And then Williams, pretty quick in the middle sector compared to what they were doing on Friday, which I think is probably why they were a bit better in qualifying than they looked in practice. And then you got Alpine, Racing Bulls. But the other big thing to notice in this data is the team at the bottom. Mercedes-Benz, the slowest team in qualifying in the middle sector. When do you ever see that? 5.5 tenths slower than McLaren in just the middle sector. That is absolutely disgusting. Losing that amount of time. And not only that, but losing 3 tenths to Red Bull and Ferrari in this part of the lap. Again, it is disgusting from Mercedes' point of view. And if they had done Mercedes at, say, about the same Sector 2 time as Red Bull or Ferrari did, George Russell would have ended up just about on the front row of the grid. So it shows you just how much this poor middle sector cost Mercedes from having a really good result yesterday. Again, if they had done the same Sector 2 time, not even as McLaren, but same as Red Bull or Ferrari, they would have ended up just about on the front row of the grid. And if they would be on the front row of the grid, who knows at that point what they would do in the race today, given what they did last week, not last week, but the last Grand Prix in Canada. So yeah, that is just mental to me to see them that far off the pace. And that middle sector really what cost Mercedes from having a properly good result. I mean, fifth on the grid for Russell is not bad, but it definitely could have been better. I don't think anyone would doubt that. And then the final sector, of course, is all about high-speed corner performance, all about downforce, and McLaren, no surprise, the best in that area, a 10th quicker than Ferrari, who we have seen in high-speed corners a lot of the time have been quick. Mercedes, a lot better, but still 2/10 off the pace of McLaren. Red Bull, slightly slower than Sauber, but of course, Max was not able on that final run to do his best final sector. So that final sector would have been at least a 10th of a second better than what we saw ultimately from Verstappen in qualifying. So the final sector pace from the Red Bull is better than what this shows, but it's still not great, I would say. Sauber, though, absolutely brilliant from them in this part of the lap. Really shows the progress they have made. With the downforce of this car in the last few weeks, they have clearly jumped forward performance-wise and are now a midfield team that can properly fight for the top 10. Racing Bulls as well, very quick through this part of the lap. And then you've got Alpine, Aston Martin, Haas, and then Williams, the slowest team in the final sector. And this final sector has been the part of the lap that has really hurt them the most all weekend. And yeah, that is why they are off the pace. If they could just be a couple tenths better in this part of the lap, Williams probably could have made the top 10. But ultimately, that is the pace they have in the final part of the lap. But McLaren, the Kings, over the course of the lap, clear to see that with McLaren. And in terms of qualifying, McLaren were the quickest team. The second quickest team in qualifying, though, you would have to say just about it was Ferrari. I think Red Bull and Ferrari ultimately had very similar pace. Again, Max didn't get to show that because he had to back off for that yellow flag at the end. But I think Ferrari were just a tad quicker than Red Bull. Mercedes, you'd have to say the slowest out of the top 4 teams. And then fifth, again, I would say Alpine, purely because Gasly did a 1 minute 4.8 in Q2, which is quicker than what Bortoleto or Lawson did in all of qualifying. So Alpine, I would say the quickest midfield team. Racing Bulls 6th, Sauber 7th, Aston Martin 8th. Overall, Williams probably 9th, just ahead of Haas, who proved in the end to have the slowest car from the midfield. Whether that pecking order will be the same for the race, we'll have to see. Of course, though, one important thing to look at is the top speed data. This speed trap data, by the way, is taken from the speed trap located at the end of the straight between turn 1 and turn 3. And McLaren were first and second in the entire speed trap, and that is ultimately why they've been so dominant this weekend, because they've got the balance just right between having enough straight line speed and a lot of downforce, and they have got it perfectly right, and that's why they've been so quick. Red Bull, no surprise, right up there. Mercedes and Ferrari as well. Aston Martin, as we have seen, have been a bit more efficient with their straight line speed recently, but it didn't really help them yesterday. Racing Bulls there, and then you got Sauber, Haas, Alpine, and Williams last of all. And the reason I believe Williams have the slowest top speed overall is because they were trying to help their performance through the corners a bit more by probably putting a tad more wing on than they ideally wanted to. But ultimately, it still did not work. So, yeah, Williams still not in a good place despite having that slight bit extra downforce put on the car. But in terms of who to look out for down the straights, I wouldn't really say anyone because it looks, I mean, all the teams look about, I wouldn't say around about the same as each other, but there's not really a big difference through the whole field. So, yeah. But in terms of long run pace, let's get on to the data from Friday. Now, these are the average lap times and the lap time difference between the teams from their long runs on Friday. I will go through who did what run on what compound because not everyone did their long run on the medium compound tyre. Lando Norris in the McLaren, though, did on average the best long run, a 1 minute 9.6 he was averaging for McLaren, and that was on the medium compound. Antonelli in the Mercedes, only slightly slower, interestingly, and he was also on the medium, so Mercedes might have a much stronger race pace today. Watch out for them in regards to that. Ferrari with Leclerc, they also were on the medium tyre, but then Max Verstappen, 0.2 on average slower than McLaren, he did his long run on the soft compound tyre, which is definitely not going to be the best race tyre. So I think there might be maybe a tenth or so more pace in that Red Bull if he's on the right tyre. Racing Bulls, very good pace from them. They also did a soft tyre run. So Racing Bulls looking good. Williams, they did their long run on the hard compound tyre. So did, I believe, Lance Stroll. And then you got Hülkenberg, Ocon, and Gasly rounding out the field. But the top six were very close in the Friday long runs. I'd be very surprised if it was this close today. Let's hope it is. But again, it'd be very surprising if it was this close. But keep an eye, I would say, on Mercedes-Benz. Because if their race pace is, say, as good as McLaren and better than everybody else but McLaren, then they should be making quite a bit of progress in the race today. So yeah, keep your eyes on the Silver Arrows and what they might be doing in this Grand Prix. But ultimately, McLaren, you would expect to have in clear air on the same tyres as everybody else. You would expect McLaren to have the best race pace of anybody. But overall, after qualifying and all of this data, what is my final prediction for this race? Well, it was actually quite hard to come up with a prediction for who was going to win. Ultimately, I did come up with my prediction. And what I will do is explain why I have come up with this prediction. So, for me, despite starting third and behind his teammate, Oscar Piastri, I think will win the race today. From Charles Leclerc second, Lando Norris then in third. Now, the reason I've gone for that is because, as we'll get into in a moment with the best strategies for today, Pirelli have said that a two-stop race is the quickest, but a one-stop strategy is possible around here for two reasons. One, the tyres don't wear out as much at this track as they do at others, for example, as they will do at the British Grand Prix track next week at Silverstone, because you have a lot more straights here and not a lot of high-speed turns that really take the life out of the tyres. So, yeah, that does help managing tyres here. But also, with Ferrari, who I think will essentially, I won't say gift Piastri the win, but I think they will drive the strategy that forces Oscar Piastri to win. What I think is going to happen is the top three, Norris, Leclerc, Piastri, will get away in, qualifying order. Lando Norris, I think, will do a two-stop strategy today. And to combat that, Leclerc, I think, unless he is too far behind, I think will do a one-stop race today. So, for example, if Lando pits on lap 20 and Leclerc is only 5 or 6 seconds behind, then I think Leclerc and Ferrari will do a one-stop race, because that will be their only chance if they are only that far behind at most by lap 20, if Lando pits on that lap for the first of 2 pit stops. That will be Ferrari's only chance of winning this race. And that will then force Oscar Piastri in the second McLaren to copy Leclerc, to avoid Ferrari doing to McLaren what they did at Monza last year, where Ferrari did a one-stop strategy and McLaren did a two-stop with both cars and ended up losing out to Leclerc and Ferrari in the end. And because of that, Piastri will stay out. He will do a one-stop strategy along with Leclerc, but eventually, because the McLaren is quicker, Piastri will pass Leclerc on track and then go on to win the race. Whilst for Lando Norris, he will ultimately not... he won't be able to make that two-stop strategy work, in my view, and will finish in third, just behind Leclerc. So that's why I think Piastri will win from Leclerc second and Norris in third. It will be because of differing strategies rather than legit, Piastri being the quickest out of the top three. And then after that, Lewis Hamilton fourth. I also think Hamilton will be on a one-stop race today. And then George Russell fifth, Max Verstappen sixth, Antonelli seventh, Gasly eighth, Lawson ninth, and Fernando Alonso, I think, will round out the top 10. But yeah, with Ferrari, I think they are only going to lose probably a couple tenths of a second per lap to McLaren on the same tyres today. Because we have seen in recent races Ferrari have been closer to McLaren on race pace by a couple tenths than they are in qualifying. Still not as quick as McLaren, but they are closer to McLaren than they tend to be in qualifying. And if Leclerc is only a couple tenths of a second per lap slower than Norris, then again, if Lando does pit for the first time, for the first of 2 pit stops on, say, lap 20 at the latest, and Leclerc is only 5-6 seconds behind, then I think Leclerc will go for the one-stop strategy, along with Oscar Piastri in the McLaren. So that's what I think is going to happen today. But when it comes to strategy, let's just get into that. And actually, before we do, I need to get the timer back on screen. Let me just wait for the next minute to tick over. And then I'll get the timer back on, as we've got an hour and a half to go still until the race begins in Austria. But, yeah, just waiting for the next minute to tick over, and then I'll get the timer back on. Make sure, by the way, to smash the like button if you haven't already. And if you are new to the channel, there you go, hour and a half to go until the race starts. If you are new to the channel, make sure to subscribe to for more content like this. We do quali and race watch-alongs pretty much for every Grand Prix, so make sure to subscribe for that. And yeah, make sure to smash the like button. We are currently on 8 likes. Let's try and get up to 15 or 20 plus likes if we can in the next few minutes. But let me just quickly go through what Pirelli have said is the best strategy for today. So according to Pirelli, a 2-stop is the quickest strategy for this race. And the 2-stop options are either start on the medium, pit between lap 18 and 24, go on to a set of hard tyres, pit between lap 46 and 52, and then finish the race on a set of mediums. Or you could start on the mediums, pit between lap 18 and 24, and then go on to another set of mediums, pit again between lap 39 and 45, and finish the race on a set of hard tyres. Then the third option is to pit slightly later for the first pit stop when starting on the medium from between lap 20 and 26. Go on to a set of hard tyres, go a bit longer on the hard tyres and pit between lap 50 and 56. And then finish the race on the soft compound tyre. Those are the 3 2-stop options that Pirelli have said are most likely. But there is a 1-stop option, which is start on the medium, pit between lap 26 and 32, and then finish the race on the hard tyre. A strategy that, again, I think Leclerc in the Ferrari will go for. And in terms of who is on what tyre compound, or not who's on what tyre compound, let's go through who has what compound of tyres available. The 2 McLarens and the 2 Ferraris and Max Verstappen all have 2 new sets of mediums and 1 new set of hard tyres available. And also the 2 Mercedes have that as well. So they've all got plenty of tyres to play with and easily have the tyres to do a 2-stop strategy. But I'm pretty sure we'll get at least a couple cars going for a 1-stop race today. But in regards to the strategy side, let me just quickly readjust my mic a second and my seating position. There you go. Yeah, I think a 1-stop strategy is something that Ferrari, if they want to win today and get their first win of 2025, it's the only chance they have of winning the race today. They're not going to beat McLaren today on pure pace, like what happened at Monza last year. McLaren on pure pace at Monza last year were quicker than Ferrari. But Ferrari were able to beat McLaren because they went for that 1-stop strategy that ultimately worked out, because at Monza the tyres don't wear out as much as they do at other tracks like we have here at the Red Bull Ring. And you can't make up as much difference on fresh tyres at a track like this and a track like what we had last year in Monza, like you can at other tracks like the Circuit de Catalunya in Spain, for example. So, again, if Ferrari want to win the race today, a 1-stop strategy is the way to go. But it all depends whether that will work on, what do you call it? That all depends on, sorry, I just had a noise in the background. That all depends on the pace that Ferrari have compared to McLaren. If they are only 2 to 3 tenths of a second slower than McLaren per lap, then they can make it work. But if they're half a second a lap or more slower, I don't think they will be able to make it work, because McLaren will just be too quick on fresher tyres to, for Ferrari to ultimately keep ahead and win the race. So it all comes down to ultimately what the race pace of the Ferrari is in the first, say, 15 to 20 laps. If it's good, then all good. But if it's, if they're quite far off, then it's not going to be able to work for them. So, yeah, that is really what I am looking for in this Grand Prix. And if McLaren, at least with Lando Norris, do commit to a 2-stop strategy, then I think we are in for a very interesting race at that point. If Ferrari then do go for the one-stop strategy. And if Ferrari can pull off the one-stop strategy and have good pace, maybe they will get their first win of 2025 today. So, yeah, cannot wait to see strategically what happens between those two teams. In regards to Mercedes and Red Bull, again, it depends on the pace they have in the race today. For George Russell, I don't expect Russell to have the same pace as Leclerc and Piastri. I think Russell, I think, will be lagging behind a bit too much compared to those cars. And I think for George Russell, I think he's probably going to do, well, it'd probably be better for Russell to do a two-stop race, because I don't think Russell has the pace to be able to do a one-stop strategy and end up on the podium. I don't think that's going to happen if he does that. If he does a two-stopper, though, maybe if the tyre wear is a bit more extreme than we're expecting, maybe that can allow him to get onto the podium today. But I don't think Mercedes have enough pace to do a one-stop strategy themselves and get on the podium. And I would have to say the same for Max Verstappen and the Red Bull. I don't think there's enough pace there for them to do a one-stop strategy and get on the podium, or have a have a good result today. So yeah, I think really Ferrari and McLaren are the teams we need to look at in terms of who may do a one-stop strategy in this race today. So ultimately, we will see what happens there. It's going to be, again, very interesting to see who does what, who pits when. But ultimately, we'll have to see when the race gets going, what the pace is like, and what the tyre wear's like, and who decides to do what. But again, I think with McLaren and Ferrari, I think we will get some interesting strategy play between those two teams, no doubt. But, guys, we have got an hour and 20 minutes to go until the race begins in Austria. Let me know in the comments section, what do you think is going to happen in the race today? Who do you think is going to win? What do you think the podium is going to be, or your top 5 is going to be? Let me know in the comments. Also, you can let me know in the poll in the chat, who you think is going to win. But also, strategically, what do you see happening in this race today? Do you think Ferrari will go for the one-stop strategy? Do you think McLaren will also do it to cover them off? Let me know in the chat, and I will read out some of your best comments ahead of the beginning of this Grand Prix. And I will, before I bring Nib on in 40 minutes or so, I will make sure to go through the teams again and do a quick roundup of what the teams should be aiming for in this race today. But yeah, make sure to post in the comments your thoughts ahead of the Grand Prix, and I'll get to your comments soon enough. We haven't got a ton of comments at the minute, but I'm sure it'll fill up soon. But yeah, until we get a few more comments, I'm just going to have a quick... I'm just going to quickly mute my microphone and have a quick sip of my drink, because it is very warm and dry in the UK right now. So I just want to make sure that I'm in decent condition today for this stream. So yeah, just give me a couple seconds, guys, and I'll be back with you in a moment. So there you go, feeling a lot better after that. Another thing, and let me just readjust my mic and seat position again. Oh, there you go, that's a lot better. In case you missed yesterday's stream, I did announce what my content plan is really for the next couple months, because obviously we have one more month of racing after this Grand Prix left until the summer break. In terms of the summer break, I have at least 3 recorded videos planned for the summer break. Hopefully a 4th video as well. We'll have to see ultimately though whether that 4th video does happen. Well, it will happen, but whether it will come out in the summer break or whether it will come out even later, we'll have to see. But yeah, that's the plan. And what I'm going to be doing over the next few weeks is getting those videos for the summer break ready. Meaning that after the British Grand Prix, there is a 3-week break between the British Grand Prix and the Belgian Grand Prix at Spa. That 3-week break, there will not be any recorded videos on the channel or content on the channel for that matter during that period, because like I said, I will be getting content ready during that time for the summer break to make sure that there is content for the summer break. And also, as I said yesterday, I want to make sure that I have a break during the summer break myself from just all types of work because of how busy I've been with uni, which I only just finished a couple weeks ago or so. And also, I've been very busy with the channel ever since the middle of February. So, yeah, that is the plan, essentially. But in terms of this next week or so, obviously, I'm doing this watch along today. Tomorrow, there will be a podcast reviewing this Grand Prix. That'll be uploaded probably 5-6 o'clock PM UK time tomorrow early evening. And then obviously next week is the British Grand Prix at Silverstone, and I'm pleased to announce that I will be doing both a qualifying and race watch along for that event. And Nib, my co-commentator, will be joining me for the race as well. And then, of course, the day after the British Grand Prix, I will be doing a podcast reviewing that race. But then, after that podcast, again, there will be quite a break until the next bit of content, which will be then for the Belgian Grand Prix. And regarding the Belgian Grand Prix, I can announce that I will be doing both a qualifying and race watch along for that Grand Prix. And in regards to the Hungarian race, the week after that, which is the final race before the summer break, I will let you guys know when we get to the Belgian Grand Prix in a month from now. But yeah, that is the plan for the next month or so. The content on the channel is going to be purely race weekend focused, and then once we get to the summer break, like I said, we'll get some a few recorded videos on the channel during that period. So yeah, that's the plan. And yeah, we'll see how that all goes. But let's read out a couple comments whilst they're there. Afternoon, Chaza says off Driz. Afternoon to you. Hopefully you're doing well. And he says, today is a must-win Grand Prix for Lando, and I do think he will win today. It is a must-win Grand Prix, absolutely. Even if Lando was to, what do you call it, finish ahead of Oscar in the race today and not win the race, whilst that would be a positive, that still would not be good enough for Lando because of what happened in Canada and what's happened this season. He really does need to, for his own confidence and form, win this Grand Prix. And if he does, and Piastri finishes where he's starting from, then the gap goes down to 12 points and it gets, nice and close again in the championship, ahead of obviously Lando's home race at Silverstone, which is next weekend. So yeah, Lando, like you say, has to win this Grand Prix. Hello to Dane. Hello to Timu Undies. Serugara as well. And Oftra is saying Ferrari can get a podium today with Leclerc and Lewis. Maybe that all depends if they can get an electric start and someone manages to get past Oscar or Charles. Max, I think, will finish P4 or P5. I mean, as long as they don't have a bad start, I don't think the start of the race really is that important for Ferrari. I think, again, it's really down to what their race pace is as to whether they can finish on the podium or win the race today. As long as the pace is good, then they should be able to pull it off. Had a brilliant qualifying, did Ferrari, who do feel like, to me, that they are getting closer to the front and getting better, but it still is a bit of a process to ultimately get there. They do have Ferrari an upgrade coming at Silverstone next week, which I think is a new front suspension. That is really their last big upgrade of the season. If that can give them a few extra tenths, then absolutely brilliant, and we can get Ferrari starting to fight for regular podiums and race wins in 2025. But yeah, they still need a bit to get to the point where they can, on pure pace, win Grand Prix. So yeah, still need to see more improvement from the Scuderia. But like I said, today, if their race pace is as good as I think it will be, on an alternate strategy, I do think they can win the race today. They don't have to have the quickest car today to win. They just need to be close enough per lap on pace to McLaren and do a one stop instead of McLaren maybe doing a two stop to be able to win. So yeah, Ferrari absolutely can win the race today, no doubt about it. And Dane saying, yeah, it is over for Max Verstappen. If you're talking championship wise, I still would not say, or I wouldn't quite go that far in saying that, because I mean the gap going into this race is 43 points. Who knows? Piastri might retire from the race. Max might, finish, say, fourth or fifth, which would take a decent amount of points out Piastri's lead. And then, yeah, that really might help, Oscar, and not Oscar, that might help Max, keep himself right in the championship. So, let's see ultimately what happens today. But if the prediction I've gone with of Piastri winning and Max Verstappen finishing in sixth, if that does come true, then that is a massive blow for Verstappen. It would not mean the championship would be over, but it would be close to that. So, yeah, ultimately we will see what happens in this Grand Prix today. But Verstappen is going to need a miracle, I think, if he's going to finish ahead of Piastri. He's going to need a lot of fortune to go his way. But we have seen some crazy things happen here at the Red Bull Ring before. So don't count out crazy things happening again. Oftra says, what we think in terms of Liam and Gabrielle's chances of points today. Will Gabrielle get his first points today? I think on the hards and mediums they looked good. Lawson, I think, will. I think he, starting in 6th, I think that's a good enough grid position for him to hold on and finish in the points. And I predicted him to finish 9th, I think. And with Bortoletto, I mean, the Sauber definitely is good enough to finish in the points. We've seen in these last few races that over a race distance, they've been pretty quick and looked after their tyres very well. The reason I've not predicted Bortoletto to finish in the points, though, is because he, this season, whilst he has outqualified Hulkenberg and had some decent results, he has not got it together on race day. And I hope today is that day where he finally figures it out and scores some points, but I think he will just miss out, and I think Fernando Alonso starting in 11th will grab a point. But there's no reason why Bortoletto can't finish the points again. That Sauber has been pretty quick as of late over a race distance. So, yeah, we'll see whether he can tap into that speed and get his first points of the season. Remember, Bortoletto still has not had a points finish in 2025. Of course, Bortoletto is a rookie. So, yeah, Bortoletto is, at this point, I think given that Hulkenberg has scored quite a few points in the last few weeks, I think Bortoletto at this point is desperate to get some points. And if Bortoletto can finish 8th, which would be an incredible result if he did, that would probably put Sauber back ahead of Aston Martin in the championship in 8th place, which again would be massive for the team. Oftra says if Piastri wins today and Max is 6th, the championship is over for Max. The Red Bull ain't quick enough, and they ain't gonna do lots of upgrades now to catch McLaren. I think, yeah, if that prediction I've gone with does happen and the gap goes up to 60 points in Piastri's favour over Verstappen, then yeah, I wouldn't say, again, I personally would not say it's over, but I can see why lots of people would say that. But I would still say that Max's hopes would be hanging by a thread if he does come away from this race 60 points behind Piastri. So, yeah, we'll see ultimately with what happens today. And hopefully, from Verstappen's point of view, he can recover some of the damage of what happened yesterday and keep himself relatively close in the championship fight. But yeah, we don't appear at the moment to have any more comments. Make sure, though, to smash a like button. As we're on 13 likes, let's try and get up to 20 plus likes if we can in the next few minutes. That'd be great if we could do that. As we have got just over 1 hour to go until the race begins in Austria. A race that, again, won't necessarily be the most exciting in terms of overtaking and racing, but it will be a very interesting one strategically. So, yeah. Looking forward to it, absolutely. And hopefully, we'll get two different teams, McLaren and Ferrari, fighting for the win here in Austria. Just like the good old days, McLaren and Ferrari fighting for the win. Last time we had that at this track was, back when we were racing here in the early 2000s. As Sky F1 are just doing a piece on following the Haas team. the last Grand Prix in Canada, where, of course, Haas scored points. Esteban Ocon finished ninth, which, what do you call it? Has seen Ocon return to ninth in the championship, which again is remarkable that he is in that position. There's really no right for Ocon to be that high in the championship, but he is. He's been absolutely fantastic as Esteban Ocon this season, and only continues his brilliant performance and results. The rounded protocols is good to see you. I'm shielding from heat. YouTube deleted my previous channel. If you have been here before, just let me know what your previous channel name was, and then I might remember who you are. Because I'm not great with channel logos in terms of remembering certain people, if I'm honest. Oftra's saying, wondering how Hadjar wasn't his usual self yesterday. I think, yeah, it was just a rare underperformance from Hadjar. Again, a rare one because he's been so consistently good this season. But, you know, you'd expect him eventually to, you know, have the odd weekend where he doesn't quite deliver. You know, it does happen. But next Grand Prix at Silverstone, I expect him to be very quick, and I expect Racing Bulls especially to be very, very fast around Silverstone. That circuit should suit their car to a T. So watch out for Racing Bulls and Hadjar and Lawson at Silverstone. I can see them causing quite a surprise in a week's time for the British Grand Prix. Which, by the way, I have looked at the weather forecast for next week's British Grand Prix, and it looks like it's going to be a hot and dry weekend. So it doesn't look like we're going to be getting the rain that we had last year, at least for the part of the weekend where we really want it to happen. So yeah, that's how it's looking for next week's race at Silverstone. Rooks, good to see you. Says afternoon, Chazza. Yeah, this muggy weather sucks. Yeah, it's very brutal, I must say. And what do you call it? I mean, I had not the greatest sleep last night because of it. I did go sleep for a few hours and then woke up in the middle of the night because my room was just red hot. Because obviously I had my window closed because I don't want, you know, all types of insects and whatever coming in my room, because I've had that before and it's absolute hell on earth. But as soon as it got light outside, which was like 3:45 in the morning, I opened my window wide because I just could not bear to go to sleep in those conditions. And thankfully, after about 30-40 minutes of having my window open, I was able to drift back off to sleep. But yeah, the humidity is really bad. And thankfully, in my part of the UK, it is overcast and cloudy. And the reason I say thankfully is because if the sun was fully out, it would be unbearably hot. As in the last couple of weeks, it has been incredibly hot here in the UK. And I know people out there will make fun of us and go, oh, look at the Brits. They're moaning because it's 25 degrees Celsius, which is, you know, like not even 80 Fahrenheit in America and all this stuff. But what people in America and other parts of the world forget is, one, we don't have air conditioning units in our homes. And secondly, British homes are built, or not even British homes, British buildings have been built to retain heat. So that's why heat in the UK is way worse than other countries, because the country's not designed with air conditioning or the way buildings are built here for it to be made comfortable in the summer. When it gets hot here in the UK, it is absolutely unbearable. For example, last weekend I went on a weekend trip to Exeter, and it was in my hotel room, really nice because the aircon was on. It was a nice, comfortable 19 degrees Celsius. But as soon as I stepped outside the hotel, it was like stepping into a sauna, but even worse. It was even worse than a sauna. It was mental how hot it was, and humid as well. And after 5 minutes, I was literally dripping all over from just how hot it was in the sun. So, yeah. For anyone who makes fun of us, especially Americans, for us complaining about the heat, again, don't complain. Don't make fun until you actually come to the UK and experience it. Because when you come to the UK and experience it, you'll realize it's a lot worse than it is for you guys in places where you've got aircon and you have homes that are built to not, retain heat like we have here. Right, let's find some comments here if I can. Dane says I'm rooting for Hamilton to get the podium over Piastri. Not saying it's impossible, but I'd be surprised if Hamilton was on the podium, to be honest. I don't think Hamilton ultimately has enough pace to get on the podium, but we'll see. Dane says, I want Norris to bottle it next week and Hamilton to win Silverstone so I control those Norris hardcore fans. Well, that's pretty much what happened last year, wasn't it? At the British Grand Prix. But yeah, I'd be very surprised if Lewis Hamilton was anywhere near in a position to win next week's Grand Prix. One, because his teammate Leclerc is consistently quicker than him, but also because I don't see Ferrari anywhere near quick enough next week to be fighting McLaren. And in regards to next week's race, spoiler alert, McLaren are going to be easily the quickest team. I wouldn't say they're going to absolutely smash everyone, but I think McLaren are going to, say similar to what we saw in Spain a few weeks ago. I think McLaren are going to be pretty comfortable next week at Silverstone. Rounded Protocol says I'm in France. Sorry. It's hell. 36 for 3 days, 20 in the morning. Yeah, that is just disgusting, quite frankly. Yeah, thankfully, here in the southwest, we don't get the heat as bad as other parts of the UK because we are a lot closer to the sea, which helps. The southeast is the hottest part of the UK, and Silverstone is technically just about in the southeast of the UK. So, yeah, if you're in the southeast of the UK during a heat wave, you are going to be absolutely roasting. Because, it's, I mean, I remember when I went to Silverstone for the World Endurance Championship race a few years ago, when the sun came out, I immediately got a sunburn because the heat and the sun is quite a bit stronger in the southeast than it is in the southwest, where again it is a bit cooler compared to the southeast because again we're surrounded by water, thankfully. Rook says, gosh, looking at the available tyres, both Astons only have one set of used mediums and hards each. Why did they go through so many tyres in qualifying? I think yesterday it was because they were legitimately not quick and they were just trying their best to get through to the top 10 and ended up burning too many tyres doing it. We did see, though, was it in Canada where they used way too many sets of the medium and they ended up not really having that many sets of that tyre when when it came to the race. So Aston Martin, they've been doing that quite a lot recently. But yeah, I'm going to read out, I reckon, a few more comments for the next 10 minutes. And then I'm going to do a quick roundup of the teams and how the teams should perform in the race today and what they should be aiming for. And then I'll do a reminder of my prediction. And then in about 20 minutes from now, we'll be bringing Nib onto the stream. Ofter says McLaren easily the quickest. Maggots, Beckett's, and Cops. Those corners in the high speed. It's going to be peak for the other teams next week, Chaz, like you said. I mean, I don't think Red Bull, Ferrari, and that will necessarily be miles away, but McLaren are going to be just easily the best team. But again, it won't be. I'm not saying McLaren are going to be like a second lap quicker or anything. It's not going to be, anything ridiculous like that. But in dry conditions around Silverstone, I just don't see how you can stop McLaren. I don't see how you can. So, yeah. It should be, if you look at it from McLaren's perspective, it should be quite a formality next week at Silverstone in terms of winning the race. And really, they should be getting a front row lockout and a 1-2 finish in the race. I do expect Max Verstappen, though, in the Red Bull to be in there and not that far away necessarily. I don't think Verstappen is going to be like, half a second or more off the pace, but as long as McLaren's drivers nail their laps, I think they'll be, again, easily the favourites at Silverstone. Serigara, I think, gives his prediction, which is Leclerc first, Norris second, Hamilton third, Piastri fourth, Alonso fifth. That'd be incredible. Fernando did that. Then again, in last year's race, Nico Hülkenberg finished sixth. So, you never know. And we did have Haas in 2018 here finish fourth and fifth, even though they were a lap down. So, midfield teams having big results here is possible. We've seen it happen. Rounded Protocol asks, Hamilton won with a bad Merc. Why not with a bad Ferrari? Because two reasons. One, the Mercedes car at Silverstone last year, even in the dry, was legitimately quick. I still don't think it was the quickest car at that Grand Prix last year, but it was quick. But also, the wet weather, because Lewis Hamilton is so good in wet conditions, that really helped him win that race. But next week at Silverstone, it's not gonna be a wet weekend. It's gonna be probably a a bone dry weekend. And Ferrari are further away than McLaren, or further away from McLaren than Mercedes were this time last year. So, yeah, Lewis Hamilton is not winning the British Grand Prix next week. I would be absolutely amazed if he wins that race. To be honest, I'd be amazed if he's even on the podium, because I think Ferrari are going to have a bit of a struggle next week. Not saying they're going to be awful, but I think I don't see them qualifying anywhere near as well as they did here, which was what, second and fourth. I'd be very surprised if they were in the had a car in the top three on the grid next week, and I'd be surprised if they were on the podium, because I think the two McLarens and the Red Bull of Verstappen will be the consistent top three next week. And the reason I think Red Bull and Verstappen will be quick next week is because we have seen the Red Bull in high-speed corners is very good, and obviously Silverstone has plenty of those, and we know Max is brilliant around Silverstone as well. So, yeah, the next non-McLaren car at Silverstone will very likely be Max Verstappen. And then after that, probably the two Ferraris. And then after that, the two Mercedes. I have to say, I don't have a great feeling about Mercedes next week at Silverstone. Wouldn't be surprised if they were the slowest of the front four teams in both qualifying and race next week. Yeah, I just don't have a good feeling about them, to be honest. Ofter is saying, Chaz, I'm looking at the forecast right now and it's saying rain on Saturday and Sunday. Let me have a look. Oh yeah, it has changed. Saturday, yeah, about a 40% chance of rain. Well, 40% chance of drizzle by the looks of it. Sunday looks like we have a proper chance of rain. Yeah, maybe it will rain. But I looked literally a couple days ago and it said it was going to be dry. So, yeah, we'll see. It's the British weather at the end of the day. You don't know what it's going to do. But in the wet, of course, Max Verstappen comes into play at that point. But again, if it's dry, even if it's overcast, if it's dry, McLaren, I don't see them being beaten tomorrow. Not tomorrow, sorry, next week. Like I said, I don't see them being beaten in dry conditions at Silverstone. But again, ultimately, we'll see when we get there, because again, the British weather is unpredictable and changes quite often. And yeah, Rook's saying the weather forecast will change again at least twice before we get to Friday. Exactly. So yeah, we'll see again in a few days what it says. But before I come back to any more comments, let me just quickly whiz through the teams and go through what they should be aiming to accomplish in this race today and what they possibly could do on strategy to accomplish those things. McLaren, on pure pace, should win the race today. They have the fastest car, but the only thing that can scupper them is if Ferrari go for a one-stop strategy compared to McLaren if McLaren go for a two-stop strategy. Personally, if I'm McLaren, I'm keeping the McLarens out until Ferrari pit first to make sure that if Ferrari do go for a one-stop race, that McLaren at least cover it off by doing the same. McLaren really should have at least about the same amount of tyre, whereas Ferrari, if not a tad better. McLaren have always been good in the last few years at managing their tyres. So from McLaren's point of view, that's what they should do. But if they are going to commit to doing a two-stop strategy, then they are going to have quite a bit of extra pace in hand to beat Ferrari if they are going for the one-stop strategy. But again, ultimately, pace-wise, McLaren should have the pace to win this race. They've got the best car. It's down to them to deliver a good enough strategy that allows them to get the result that really they should get today, which is a win. And the 1-2, of course, is available for them. I don't think it's necessarily comfortable or easy for McLaren to get a 1-2 today, because I think Leclerc will be fighting very hard, and I think Ferrari as well will be pretty quick themselves. But McLaren at least need to get the win today. For Red Bull, Max Verstappen, 7th on the grid. They're going to need a lot of luck to get onto the podium today. Max, I think, will probably do a two-stop strategy. Remember, the Red Bull is, at the minute, probably the worst team out of the top 4 teams at managing their tyres. We saw that, a great example of that in the last 2 Grand Prix in Spain and Canada. So, yeah, Red Bull, I think, will be on a two-stop strategy and will have to hope for a very well-timed virtual or full safety car to bring themselves into play. For Yuki Tsunoda in 18th, I think they may as well go for a one-stop strategy with Tsunoda and try and get him, properly into action by running him long into the race. That's, I think, the only thing really they can do. Tsunoda out position and way lower on the grid than really he should be. As I said earlier, the only way Ferrari win the race today is if they do what they did at Monza last year, which is an alternate strategy compared to McLaren. If both McLarens go for the two-stop strategy, or even if Lando Norris only goes for the two-stopper, Ferrari have to combat that by going for a one-stop strategy. If they do that, I think if they don't lose too much time in the first stint, I think they can win this Grand Prix. It will be very close, don't get me wrong, but I think it is doable. It all depends on, though, whether McLaren go for a two-stop or not, and also how quick the Ferrari is in the first stint of the race. Ultimately, we'll have to see how quick they are, but if they are, again, by lap 20, only 5 seconds behind, say, Lando Norris, who's in the lead, and Norris does pit for the first of 2 stops, Ferrari absolutely at that point, if they do go for the one-stop strategy, which they should at that point, have got absolutely a great chance of victory. So keep your eye on Ferrari in that first stint. That is going to be very interesting to see what their pace is like. And if they do go for a one-stop compared to a two-stopping maybe McLaren team, in terms of, can they pull off the win? Again, it's going to be very close. We will see whether they can do it. Mercedes, I think, are a bit too slow to pull off a one-stop strategy today. I think they'll probably go for a two-stopper with George Russell and Kimi Antonelli. Ultimately, though, I don't think Mercedes have got the pace to finish on the podium, especially given where they're starting from. And I think 5th is the best they can get today with George Russell, who is starting 5th. Into the midfield, Aston Martin. I think you'll probably see Fernando Alonso, who's starting 11th, run a tad longer than other cars. I don't think Aston Martin will necessarily go for a one-stop strategy, but I think Alonso, again, will run a bit longer than others to have fresher tyres for the latter part of the Grand Prix. So keep an eye out for Alonso. And also keep an eye out for Alpine, and especially the Alpine of Pierre Gasly, who was very quick in qualifying. If he had showed the pace he showed in Q2, in Q3, Gasly would have ended up on the 3rd row of the grid. So watch out for Gasly in this race today. For Haas, even though they were the slowest team in qualifying, we have seen plenty of times in a race them being very, very fast and scoring plenty of points. So keep your eye on them. I think they'll be decently quick in the race today, but I'm not sure they've got enough pace from where they're starting from to get points. I think they could, though, maybe finish in a P12. So yeah, keep your eyes on Haas as usual, because they always fly through the field. Racing Bulls have got a car on the third row in Liam Lawson. Liam will obviously not finish there because he's got a couple much faster cars behind in Max Verstappen and also Kimi Antonelli at the Red Bull and Mercedes respectively. The aim for Lawson sorry about that. That was the hot and humid air choking my throat, which nothing I can do about that, I'm afraid. But yeah, the aim for Lawson is to finish ahead of the rest of the midfield cars, which I think he can do. I think the only threat to him finishing in 8th place is Pierre Gasly, if Gasly can show the type of pace he was in Q2 yesterday. So keep an eye on that fight between Gasly and Lawson and Bortoleto as well. But yeah, Lawson should finish in the points, no doubt. Williams, they've got a car up in 12th, but I would be surprised if they finish in the points today. They just don't have, I don't think, a fast enough car, I'm afraid. And for Sauber, they've got a car in the top 8. Gabriel Bortoleto starting, not sure if he's starting in the top 10 for the first time, but it's his first Q3 appearance it was yesterday for the young Brazilian. Can Sauber score points for the third time in 4 races? We will see, but it's going to be tough between Bortoleto, Lawson, Gasly, Alonso, and others. But here is a reminder, guys, of my final race prediction. Oscar Piastri, I think, will win the race. Leclerc finishing in second. Piastri and Leclerc, I think, will do a one-stop strategy. Lando Norris third, I think, will be on a two-stop strategy today. Hamilton fourth on a one-stop strategy, and then Russell fifth, Verstappen sixth, Antonelli seventh, Gasly eighth, Lawson ninth, and Alonso in 10th. That's my prediction for today's Austrian Grand Prix. As we are just over half an hour away from lights out. And let me just get the timer back on screen in a few seconds. I'll just wait for the next minute to tick over. And yeah, just waiting now as the cars, by the way, are coming out of the pit lane. Of course, the pit lane shuts in a few minutes. So all the cars need to be out of the pit lane in the next few minutes. As they'll be doing the grid walk on Sky F1 soon. Of course, no Martin Brundle for Sky at this Grand Prix. He'll be back on the Sky F1 broadcast next week at Silverstone, of course, which is not that far from obviously his home. There you go. 36 minutes to go until lights out. So I'm going to quickly read out a couple comments and then we are going to get on to the we're going to get on to posting a link of the stream out and bringing Nib, my co-commentator for today, on, and we'll get his thoughts ahead of the race. Also, I'm keen to get his thoughts on what happened a couple weeks ago in Montreal, because of course he was not able to join us for that Grand Prix, but I know he has plenty to say about what happened in Canada. Let me see if I can find some decent comments here. Rook's asking, did we ever get an answer to why Hulkenberg was so bad yesterday? Illness, mechanical issue, just a bad day? Let me have a quick look on X to see if there was a tweet about why Hulkenberg yesterday was so poor. And let me just have a look. And no, they just say Nico couldn't improve his time. So just a bad qualifying session. Space Law saying Max Verstappen. Eric are saying Norris to crash with 15 laps to go. Pretty hard around this circuit to have a crash on your own, especially in a race situation. But don't put anything past Lando Norris at throwing away a Grand Prix. He is a specialist at this point at doing such a thing. But ultimately, today we'll see whether he does throw it away or not. You'd think, surely not, given just how quick he has been this weekend. Hello to Astro. Good to see you. By the way, make sure to smash the like button if you haven't already. Let's try and get up to 30 plus likes if we can in the next few minutes. And as well, as we've only got 30 minutes to go until the race, make sure to vote in the poll running in the chat. Let me know, who do you think wins the Austrian Grand Prix? Will it be Lando Norris, Charles Leclerc, Oscar Piastri, or Max Verstappen? Those are your 4 options. Let me know out of those 4 who you think most likely wins the Austrian Grand Prix. But I think I am going to just quickly post a link of the stream out. Let me just quickly do that. Come join us here to Watchalong, the race in Austria. As well, one thing I want to quickly check is what is on my homepage. And yeah, I forgot accidentally to, what do you call it, to add the race watch along to the main thing on the homepage, which not great from me. But yeah, there you go. And hopefully we'll get a few more people jumping on before the race. Astro says I predict a Piastri win with Leclerc second, Russell third, Lewis fourth, Antonelli fifth, and then Lawson, Alonso, Tsunoda, Bortoleto, and Behrman the rest of the top 10. And yeah, Rooks just posting in the chat the news that came out earlier this morning that the Austrian Grand Prix will remain on the calendar until 2041. Very good news, because it's a Grand Prix we love. A Grand Prix that I really hope to attend at some point, because the atmosphere of this Grand Prix I know is really, from what I've heard, it's a good Grand Prix to go to. It's one of the cheaper F1 races as well. So yeah, I do hope to attend this race at some point in the future. And yeah, it's been a popular Grand Prix. never should have left the calendar in the 2000s. And yeah, great to race here every year like we do. So here's to the next, 16 years. By the time that contract's up, I'll be, 43? So yeah, that is a mammoth contract. But at least it's a contract we can agree with, rather than the Las Vegas one where that's been is it the Las Vegas? No, the Miami Grand Prix that has a contract until 2041. So yeah. Right, let me read a couple more comments before I bring Nib on a sec. Astro says still young then, Chazza, absolutely. And quickly off Driz saying, I'm sorry, but the cars is really why the racing at these tracks are not good. They're expected closer racing in 2022. Let's be real, have the 2022 regulations work, Chazza? Not really, no. That technical directive that Mercedes pushed so hard for in 2022, I think it's a big reason why these regulations have failed. So you can thank Mercedes for that. That technical directive really ruined these cars. But also the cars got bigger and heavier, which is also not good. Rook's saying, I was thinking Austria would be worth a visit too. Always wanted to go to Spa, but if it drops off the calendar, it might well have to be Austria I go to. Yeah, I mean, eventually I do want to go to some of the European races. The last, or the only F1 race weekend I've been is the Spanish Grand Prix 11 years ago. And the last F1 event I went to was pre-season testing at the same track in Spain. And that was, 6.5 years ago. So, yeah, I would like to... I would like to get back to going to a Grand Prix. I had to look at the prices, though, for the British Grand Prix. Not that I'm going to go, but the prices are absolutely disgusting for the British Grand Prix. It's almost £400 for a general admission ticket for the 3 days. That is just ridiculous. And that is, that's not including... I mean, for me, I'd have to travel up on the train, stay in a hotel, obviously then food, drink, all of that. Ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. Getting to the point where you're going to have to take out a bank loan just to go to an F1 race. Anyway. Let's just do a couple things quickly and bring Nib onto the stream and get his thoughts ahead of the race. Well, there is currently, Nib is offline, so I hope he hasn't fallen asleep, which is possible because I know he's had a busy day. So, yeah, we'll see when he hops on. Barham says, come visit me in Nib for the season open next year, Chaz. If I wasn't terrified of flying, I would. But, yeah, I'm terrified of flying. So, but again, if I could fly, I would go to the Australian Grand Prix because it seems more fun than the British Grand Prix and the prices seem more fair. So yeah, if only I could fly, but yeah, there's just no way. There's absolutely no way I'd be able to come to that Grand Prix. There's no way I'd be able to stay on a plane for that length. There's just no chance, I'm afraid. Brooks saying the price of the weekend at Silverstone is the same as a whole week's holiday and a Grand Prix weekend at other circuits. Yeah, it's just absolutely ridiculous, and this is why I prefer to spend my money going to football matches when it comes to sporting events, because you don't get as ripped off as you do for F1 events. Now, yeah, football ticket prices, of course, have been an issue for a long time, but they're still nowhere near as bad as what it is for F1 races. And especially, some of the, well, not some of the tickets, but the teams that I go and watch, the prices are fair, so I'm not getting absolutely shafted financially by these organizations. But F1, they are just absolutely rinsing the fan base, and eventually people will stop coming as much to these races as they were before. Ofter is saying £400, you're having a laugh. Chaz, I remember you talking about the Miami Grand Prix, around £1,000 for that. I mean, yeah, that was 3 years ago. I think I made a video about that, so it's even worse probably now. And yeah, I think I did I said it on stream maybe a year or so ago, that if I was to go to the British Grand Prix for all 3 days, Friday to Sunday, and stay in a hotel, get the train up, all of that, I'd be looking, and spending money on food and that, you're looking at £1,500. And that's just for me. Imagine if you took a family. It's absolutely mental. And at this point, if I am going to go to the British Grand Prix in the future, it's becoming increasingly likely I'll only be able to go to the race day rather than the whole weekend, because the prices for the whole weekend are just ridiculous. And again, unless I took out a loan, which I'm not going to do for a sporting event, then yeah, that's the way it's going to have to be. So yeah, it is it's sad. It really is. Astra saying, being just on pay TV hurts the sport. I think used to watch every race as a kid with free to air telly. And Murray Walker and James Hunt as commentators. Good old days, memories. Well, that's the issue with Liberty, is it's all about the money in regards to marketing and broadcasting the sport. They don't care about young people or people from say less privileged backgrounds having access to the sport. They do not give a flying fuck about that. All they care about is money, and they would rather those ticket prices be as high as they are now, because at that point, working class people can't afford then to go to these races. Only middle class people at poorest can. And obviously, they want those types of people attending those races, or these races, because those are the types of people that are going to come to these Grand Prix and spend money, when us working class lot are going to only probably spend money on the ticket itself, and then when it comes to everything else, we'll find our own way, whether it's camping or whatever. It's just a systematic removal of the working class fan. Let me just have a quick look on X to see if Nib is around, and no. I think Nib, what do you call it? I think Nib has fallen asleep, is what he's done. Which, if he has, fair enough. He's been working all day, so I know he's absolutely fucked. So, if he's unable to join us, then fair enough. Because again, he's had a very busy, stressful day. But we've still got, thankfully, another 20 minutes. So we'll see if he does hop on or not before we get started. I will just quickly message him to see if that prompts him to wake up. Astro says, sport has to keep winning new fans to keep going, to have a future. If it can do that and keep them the old fans well. Implications. Brabham saying, give me his address and I'll go and get him up. The new fans. If you're gonna win new fans, it's most likely going to be the younger generation. But the younger generation are only going to be able at this point to watch F1 via the highlights they see online, rather than actually being able to watch these races live, because they won't be able to afford paying for Sky, or obviously to go to these races, because it's like paying for a 2-week holiday. So, yeah, if Formula One wants to keep new fans coming in, especially young fans, that's what they need to work on, because young people are not going to be able to afford to watch or come to these races. That's just simple reality. But Formula One has always been an elitist sport, and we have to accept that. But doesn't mean that they should continue in that direction. As the grid walk at the minute is Ted Kravitz and Bernie Collins on Sky F1, as we are just over 15 minutes away from the beginning of this Grand Prix, as the Austrian national anthem is about to be played on the grid on a very hot and sunny day in the Styrian Mountains. And yeah, this Grand Prix in Austria, like I said, is absolutely a Grand Prix that I would love to attend at some point in the future, because it looks like a Grand Prix that I would enjoy attending, especially the surroundings and the vibe. Seems like a good Grand Prix to go to, but in terms of when I'd be able to go to it, we'll have to see how the next few years of my life go, because obviously I've still got a couple more years, most likely, of university to come. Right. Let me see if I can find any more comments. I've sent a message to Nib and I haven't had a response as of yet. So yeah, I'd imagine that he is asleep. Because the last thing he reacted to was about 3 hours ago. So yeah. You see my post about Fred Vasseur not attending the race today? I did not. Let me scroll up. So, according to the F1 website, Fred Vasseur, the Ferrari team principal, has gone home for personal reasons. So his deputy, Jerome D'Ambrosio, will be in charge on the pit wall. D'Ambrosio, of course, was a Formula One driver. He did he do a few races for Virgin Racing, I think, in 2010? I know he did a race for Lotus in 2012 where he replaced Romain Grosjean, who got a race ban famously for that incident at Spa. And D'Ambrosio, I think, did he win the GP2 championship at some point? Or he was in that series. Let me look. Well, he was in GP2, but he didn't win it. Yeah, he was he was a driver in F1 for Virgin Racing in 2011. Did the whole season. Finished last though in the championship. And then, yeah, did one race in 2012 for Lotus where he finished 13th at the Italian Grand Prix, which is the best result he ever had. And he did finish 4th in his first season in Formula E, which I think was the first season ever of Formula E. Yeah, it was. So, yeah. Looney Classics. Don't you guys think MotoGP is more entertaining than F1? It's a lot more competitive, at least. Yeah, it is. But I think the reason I don't like MotoGP as much as F1 is because I just understand and enjoy Formula One just more than than bike racing. I think I like open wheel cars just more than bike racing. Yeah, bike racing is very exciting, absolutely, but I just prefer open wheel cars. But yeah, it is exciting. You cannot deny that. Right, let me see if I can find any other comments. Tarunya says, did anyone watch the Formula One movie yet? I have not. It has come out here in the UK. I believe it has. Let me just quickly check. F1, the movie. And yeah, it has. I'm pretty sure it has come out in Europe. Yeah. I've just seen on Google it's advertising a screening of the film. Funnily enough, a screening of the film 3 miles away from where I'm at the time that the race starts, which is interesting. Yeah, I am not going to go see this film in the cinema. Reason being is, one, I've seen some reviews from certain people and I don't think it is worth going, especially considering at the minute I am pretty busy with stuff. I'm still doing certain work that I've continued from uni. Obviously, still doing working on the channel and other stuff as well. And yeah, I don't think it's worth going to watch this film from the reviews that I've seen. What I have seen though is that, visually and in terms of the way it's shot, it's a great film, but in terms of story and plot and characters, writing, which is really what I enjoy the most about films, and for me that is the most important part of films, is the story and the writing. From what I've seen, it's not that great. So yeah, I am probably going to give it a miss. I will probably wait till it comes out on Amazon Prime to where I can buy or rent it and just watch it at Christmas. Again, it's not, from the reviews I've seen from people that are Formula One fans, it's not worth going to see. If you want to go see it though, go and give the film a watch. But from what I've seen, review wise, I don't think it's worth bothering to go and waste 2.5 hours of my day. And yeah, Todd's saying I'll see it when it's on Netflix. Yeah, exactly. That's my attitude. When it comes out on the streaming platforms, I'll give it a watch. But it's not worth my time and money to go and watch in the cinema. And to be fair, I don't tend to go to the cinema really often at all. The last time I went to the cinema to watch a film was for Oppenheimer, which came out, was it last year or the year before? I think it was it last year? I can't remember when it came out, Oppenheimer, but yeah. That was a film that absolutely was worth going to watch in the cinema, because it was an amazing film, and we all knew it was going to be an amazing film because of who was directing it, the cast, all of that. But yeah, I don't tend to go and watch films at the cinema because most of them are not worth the time and money to even bother. And all you have to do at this point is just wait a few months and they'll be out on a streaming platform. But yeah, it appears, unfortunately, Nib will probably not be joining us, because I've sent him a message and yeah, he hasn't replied. But we've still got a few minutes, so if he does suddenly wake up and hop on, then great. But if we get to the start of the race and he still isn't here, then I'm just going to continue on solo. But before we get into this race, let me quickly finish up the results of the poll and see who you guys have voted for as most likely to win this Grand Prix today. And there you go, 167 votes, and 42% of the vote has gone to Lando Norris, 20% for Piastri, 19% for Verstappen, 17% for Charles Leclerc. So yeah, Lando Norris, you think guys will win? Not really surprised with that prediction, because again, on pure pace, Lando should win this race. Going to take either a mistake or bad strategy that could cost him today. So yeah, there you go. Right, I've just seen Nibs he's just woke up from having a nap, so he might be joining us in these next couple minutes. Right, well, what I'm gonna do quickly is, hold on a sec. Right, well, I'm going to quickly go through the usual last couple things before lights out, and then if he's ready, right before the race starts, then I'll bring him on. Anyway, let's get into a final couple very important bits of information before lights out here in Austria. Firstly, the championship standings. Oscar Piastri, your championship leader, comes into this race 22 points clear of his nearest rival, being Lando Norris, who of course is on pole. Max Verstappen third, 43 points behind. He's going to have to do something special today to try and close the gap. George Russell fourth, Leclerc fifth, Hamilton sixth, Antonelli seventh, Albon eighth, Esteban Ocon ninth, and Isaac Hadjar 10th. And on the constructor side, McLaren way clear of Mercedes, who have jumped up to second after the last Grand Prix, where of course they won. Ferrari in third, Red Bull fourth, Williams fifth, Haas in sixth, but level on points with Racing Bulls. Big race today for Racing Bulls to get back up to sixth in the championship. Aston Martin eighth, Sauber ninth. Sauber, though, could go back up to eighth today if they maintain the position they're starting from, compared to Aston Martin. And Alpine last of all in the championship. Regarding the front-running teams, though, let's go through some key stats that you guys need to know of going into this race. For McLaren, their last win in Austria was 24 years ago with David Coulthard in 2001. And they've only had 2 wins this century at the Red Bull Ring. It's been a long time since they've had victory here. Can they finally get it today? And last year, they were so close to winning. Second and a DNF for Lando, who was fighting for the win. Can they go one step better? Red Bull have had a lot of success here lately. Max Verstappen and Red Bull's last win here in Austria was 2 years ago in 2023. They've won here 5 times the last 10 years. It was only 5th and 7th here last year because of the crash of Max and Lando. With Max in 7th on the grid, though, it's going to be a difficult afternoon. For Ferrari, their last winner here in Austria was 3 years ago with Charles Leclerc, and that is Ferrari's only win in Austria in the last 10 years. Last year, 3rd and 11th in the race. Surely they can do better than that today. And for Mercedes, they won last year's Austrian Grand Prix with George Russell, and they are the most successful team at this Grand Prix in the last 10 years. They won 6 times in the last 10 years. And yeah, last year, 1st and 4th. Can they somehow pull that off today? But let's go through your starting grid for the Austrian Grand Prix of 2025. On the front row, Lando Norris and Charles Leclerc. On the second row, championship leader Oscar Piastri and 7 times world champion Lewis Hamilton. On the third row, George Russell and Liam Lawson for Racing Bulls. Who outqualifies teammate from earlier this season at Red Bull, Max Verstappen, starting 7th, the lowest he has started here in 10 years. Gabriel Bortoleto, the F2 champion, in 8th. And then rounding out the top 10, Kimi Antonelli for Mercedes and Pierre Gasly for Alpine. Just outside of the top 10, Fernando Alonso and Alex Albon. Isaac Hadjar, Franco Colapinto in 13th and 14th. 15th and 16th, Oliver Behrman and Lance Stroll. Penultimate row of the grid, Esteban Ocon and Yuki Tsunoda. And on the back row, the ex-partnership at Renault from 2018, Carlos Sainz and Nico Hülkenberg bring up the rear of your field. So there you go. And let me just check. Yeah. So I am going to very quickly bring Nib on, as the formation lap will be beginning in about 45 seconds time. By the way, the tyre information you can see on the left-hand side of your screen where it says medium. That is what I've just put for now, but that will probably change in a second. But yeah, let me just quickly bring Nib on. Right, are you there?
We are alive.
Thank God, I was worried. How are you?
Pretty good. I was quite tired though, so that's why I've woken up 5 minutes before lights out, even though it's only 11 o'clock, which is not late for me. But how are you?
Yeah, I'm good. Looking forward to the race as we're just about to get the formation lap going. Quickly as it does get underway. What are you expecting to happen today?
the McLarens to absolutely fly off into the distance. Uh, I think Norris has been unbelievable this weekend. You'd expect Norris to win, followed by Piastri, and then you'd expect Leclerc, because Leclerc's always pretty bloody good around here as well. So I think things going to stay reasonably much the same. I mean, you'd expect Max to move up a little bit, maybe. Shout out to Bortoletto, by the way. What a weekend he's put together. Incredible qualifying performance. Um, oh,
As
is
yeah,
that
we've
Carlos Sainz?
yeah, we got Carlos Sainz stalled on the grid. He says he's stuck in first gear, so we might get a delayed start here.
What in the F2 are we seeing?
Yeah, as they've stepped away from his car now, and I think he's trying to get underway, but nothing is moving from that Williams at the moment. So this is probably going to be an aborted start, thankfully for you, which will give us an extra couple minutes or so as Lando Norris is just coming into the penultimate corner. And yeah, Carlos Sainz still stuck on the grid, not able to pull away. The marshals are trying to push his car, see if that will do anything, but doesn't look like it is. And yet the start has been aborted. So it looks like the teams, this will be like a few minutes. Oh no, there you go. Carlos Sainz does now finally get away. And looks okay for now. But yeah, we'll see what happens, and we'll see in terms of the start here what's going to happen. We might have a few minutes now delay to the start of this Grand Prix as the teams quickly come back onto the grid, as we're seeing Carlos Sainz from his visor cam. And yeah, the team's now coming back onto the grid. So there'll be probably a 5-minute delay until we get back underway again.
Yeah.
Before though we get
Bias.
into this race, I just wanted to ask you, obviously, because you were unable to join us for the last Grand Prix. What were your thoughts of what happened in Canada, especially the collision with the two McLarens, and what Lando Norris did a couple weeks ago?
I certainly didn't need to wait to see any replay before bursting out laughing at what on earth was Lando Norris doing. But yeah, I mean, that was insane by Norris, quite frankly. I mean, I'm sure we've all done that on the F1 game a couple of times, but he's a Formula One racing driver. What on earth was that? I still can't quite believe that he went for a gap which was just never, ever, ever there. I get that, like, the pitch straight in Montreal can be a little bit confusing because of the way it bends to the right, but that's no excuse. Um, but as now Carlos Sainz's brakes are on fire. That's probably why he's been having issues.
Yeah, his rear brakes have caught fire as he's stopped at the end of the pit lane where he is going to be starting from. So Sainz will be 20th instead of obviously 19th. He's had a dreadful weekend, Carlos. He was absolutely terrible in qualifying yesterday. As race control said, formation lap will start in 10 minutes from now. As the Williams mechanics are just trying to keep that fire down, but I wouldn't be surprised if Carlos does not take to the start of this race, because clearly there are some issues with that car. But yeah, in regards to the last Grand Prix, yeah, it was an absolutely terrible mistake from Lando, as you said, going for a gap that was never there, and it was such a. I mean, from Lando's point of view, if we to compare it to racing online, it would be something you would do in just a fun online lobby with your
Yes.
mates. It was not a serious move whatsoever. It was absolutely ridiculous what he attempted against Piastri there. Um, Championship wise, though, that obviously has benefited Oscar. He's now 22 points clear of Norris, 43 points clear of Verstappen. How confident are you still feeling championship wise at the moment with Oscar? And even though, yeah, he's third on the grid here today, and you'd imagine Lando will win this race today, how confident are you feeling at this current moment as we're pretty much halfway through the season?
Well, I think we'll see next weekend a little bit, but Norris. I mean, Norris has always been mega around here, but this new McLaren front suspension seems to be helping Norris's performance quite a bit. So I've got a little bit of concern again, but we'll see next time out whether or not those fears are to be legitimized or not. At least from my end as a Oscar Piastri fan, um, to see whether or not that's really boosted Lando's performance or not.
Yeah, Silverstone next week, you'd imagine Piastri will be definitely a bit closer, at least, to Lando. As Williams, I've just told Carlos to jump out of the car. So Carlos Sainz is out of the Grand Prix. A Grand Prix that a year ago he finished on the podium, but he will not even take the start. So a DNS for Sainz. And, well, to be fair, it saved him 2 hours of nothing, really, because he was not going to finish in the points today, given how slow Williams have been. So let me quickly have a look at the chat. Astro is saying respect for Norris for immediately omitting blame, but so silly of him to do that. Absolutely. Let me see if I can find a couple other comments. And as Rooks said in the chat earlier, and I have corrected the information on my screen, in terms of the start of this race, everyone is starting on a set of mediums except Gasly, Hadjar, Colapinto, Behrman, and Hulkenberg, who will be starting on the soft compound tyre, interestingly. The three tyre compounds this weekend, C5, C4, and C3, so I'm surprised that we've got soft tyre runners out there, because the soft tyres are probably only going to last at most 15 laps. So yeah, that is a surprise to see, but we'll see how those teams get on that tyre, as they are still the marshals and mechanics trying to put out the back of that Williams. As we've got 6 minutes to go until the formation lap, and it will be now a 70 lap race. Obviously, one lap lost for the for Sainz stalling on the grid. In terms of Carlos Sainz, we'll have a quick discussion about him, because personally, Nib, I think he's been absolutely terrible this season. Carlos, he has been pretty comfortably beaten by and outperformed by Alex Albon. I mean, we were hoping, obviously, Albon, now he has a real teammate, would be able to step up to the challenge. But Sainz has been pretty poor, hasn't he, compared to what we were expecting from him?
He sure has been. I mean, there was the meme flying around after qualifying yesterday on F1 Twitter that he's now going to be posted on Alex Albon's pet's Instagram account. Um, because, yeah, I mean, science has been at really nowhere this season. Um, pretty diabolical. You'd expect by this stage Um, things have been you'd get things together, but those last three races been out in Q1, is it? I think that's what they said on the broadcast yesterday. So pretty just pretty piss poor season by Carlos.
Yeah, I'm looking at the Drivers' Championship, and Sainz is in 13th, and he's almost 30 points behind Albon, which doesn't sound a lot, but in the midfield, given that there's not a lot of points available, that is a massive gap between teammates, especially after 10 races we've had. So, yeah, that is ridiculous. And I think Carlos Sainz has been easily one of the most disappointing drivers on the grid, maybe the most disappointing, you could argue. And I think he's been absolutely one of the bottom probably 5 drivers on the grid this year. I've been incredibly disappointed with his performance this year. In contrast, Alex Albon's had a really fantastic season, as we've got another 3.5 minutes until our second formation lap. Astro saying, yeah, I thought Carlos would do a lot better this year that he has so far. He's a better driver than that, I think. He is, that's the thing. We know that he could do better than this, but we have kind of seen this before when he was at Renault in 2018, when he was teammates with Hulkenberg, where he had a few good performances, but there was quite often times where he was just nowhere, when Hulkenberg would be doing a lot better, and it was, you just couldn't explain it at the time. And I still, as there's your favourite man, or one of your favourite men in the Racing Bulls garage. I'm sure they'll show it in a moment. As yeah, for that 2018 season, I still really can't explain why Carlos was so poor, when in other seasons he's been very good, especially when he was at McLaren. So you would imagine at some point Carlos Sainz is going to consistently get back to performing at the level that we know he could perform at, say that he performed at times last year. But yeah, this year has been a poor season, no doubt about it, but it's been a very good one for Albon and really helped his stock. Astra saying Colapinto's been very disappointing. Not that I'm unhappy about that as a doing fan. He's done better these last couple races, but still ultimately not good enough. Yeah, he was 14th in qualifying, and Gasly obviously 10th, and Gasly really should have been 6th in qualifying if he had again replicated his Q2 time in Q3. So Colapinto, based on that performance from Gasly, Colapinto should have been probably just about making the top 10, or at least be where Alonso is. So yeah, not great from Colapinto, but I mean, he's not doing as bad as he was when he came into the car at Imola, but I mean, you would hope that'd be the case, to be honest. But Franco has, I think this race is his 5th Grand Prix, so we'll see if there is any change to the lineup and whether Doohan will come back into the car for the next Grand Prix. I don't think Doohan will, because I think Flavio is adamant that Franco is going to be in that car, but let's see what happens on that front. As we are looking at Liam Lawson, the young Kiwi who, remarkably, 6th on the grid in the Racing Bulls, as there is Lando Norris on the mediums, starting from pole. As we're about to begin this second formation lap ahead of what's going to be now a 70-lap race at the Red Bull Ring. As we are just a few more seconds away from the beginning of the formation lap. And there you go. Norris and Leclerc lead the pack away. And it'll be another couple minutes until we're finally underway for this Grand Prix, as we are now only have 19 cars remaining on the grid. As now we've got ours. I thought there for a second that Hulkenberg has stalled, but thankfully he's pulled away.
I think it was because Sonoda was quite late in pulling away
Yeah.
as well.
As Lando just coming through the middle part of the lap in turn 4, followed by the Ferrari of Leclerc. And like you've said, Nib, Leclerc always right up there at this Grand Prix. Won here 3 years ago, a couple years ago, finished second, almost won here in 2019. So Lando has got to be absolutely on it today, because Leclerc behind is at his best, no doubt, this weekend, as Lando Norris now weaves as he approaches the penultimate corner. And comes through. And we've had, in the last 5 Austrian Grand Prix, we've had 4 different winners. Russell, Verstappen, Leclerc and Bottas. As Lando pulling onto the grid. Now, just doing the final burnouts are the top half of the field. As we're on board of Max Verstappen, what can he do from 7th? Should have been probably about 3rd on the grid if he had finished his lap. So he's got work to do. As the top 10 now line up. And there's on board the visor camera George Russell, who of course won this Grand Prix last year. He'll have to do some effort to win today, as the final few cars just lining up now. So after DNFing in the last Grand Prix, can Lando Norris get back to winning and take a crucial win here? The lights are on. 3, 4, 5 lights. And lights out, and Lando Norris gets a good start. So does, though, Charles Leclerc, forces Norris to defend. Piastri round the outside, and Oscar Piastri, what a move. And he's up to 2nd place. Leclerc in 3rd. Russell, for the moment, is 4th as Piastri slipstreaming Norris. Will Oscar go for the move? He's got the outside line. Lando holds the inside. There's a Mercedes who dive bombs up the inside, and Verstappen spins. He's been hit, I think, by Antonelli as the 2 McLarens lead. Leclerc 3rd. Hamilton here trying to repass Russell for 4th. But Russell hangs on just about. And Russell, I think, will claim 4th just about. Oh no, Lewis Hamilton going to go right round the outside. Brilliant move from the 7-time champion, as we've got a full safety car. Max Verstappen's race has been absolutely destroyed. We'll have to see a replay, but all I saw, Nib, was a young Mercedes driver absolutely sending it, and Max Verstappen is out. He's out of the race, and Antonelli's out as well. What a disaster for the championship. And what a moment this is in 2025, and that was entirely caused, wasn't it, Nib, by Antonelli? Like I said, all we could see was a Mercedes throwing it up the inside, and he caused absolute mayhem. As Verstappen waving to the crowd, and yeah, that's possibly championship again ending, isn't it, at this point?
Yeah. You'd very much think so.
As we're on lap 2 now under the safety car. And yeah, Verstappen and Antonelli out of this race. This is now a big moment. This is for the midfield teams. As Gasly is 6th. Albon is 7th after starting 12th. So Albon 7th, Bortoleto 8th, Lawson 9th, Alonso 10th, and then Colapinto in 11th, Behrman 12th. Here is a replay of the start, and Nib, once it gets to you, I'll let you take us through it.
Yeah, I must say that I think Max pretty relaxed there after getting taken out. Max of other years would have been quite angry. But yeah, Leclerc actually got a quite good second phase of his start. Really, Norris had to cover him off, which then compromised Leclerc's line out of turn one, and Piastri was able to get him around the outside of turn one. Great move, and fair play to Leclerc, because it's very easy to go wide and barge into somebody there. As then we're watching from the rear view of Lando Norris, who defends the inside, and Piastri had to try go around the outside. And watching further back, oh my goodness gracious me. I didn't even see Antonelli on my screen then. Antonelli's come from about, I don't know, maybe 10 car lengths back behind Verstappen, trying to avoid a collision further back, and just absolutely walloped him in the rear. That's, wow.
Yeah, just seeing the visor cam, and he was caught out by how early I think the cars ahead braked compared to him. He said, sorry, I locked the rear on the radio. And yeah, he thankfully didn't cause any bigger collision, because we've seen cars flip this weekend at that corner in Formula 2. But yeah, just completely out of control. And I wouldn't be surprised if Antonelli gets a grid penalty for the next Grand Prix, because yeah, he was lucky not to take out any more cars. That's Isaac Hadjar, 17th, who's pitted, so clearly he had some damage. A safety car is in this lap, so we've got Stroll 13th, Ocon 14th, Tsunoda 15th, Hulkenberg 16th, Hadjar 17th, and yeah, Max Verstappen and Kimi Antonelli are out of this race. Can the two McLarens, especially the championship leader Piastri, take advantage of Verstappen's DNF? Let's see. As Lando Norris now becomes a safety car, this is perfect for Piastri. He can now follow his teammate and challenge his teammate for the win, now that he's got Leclerc out of the way. As we're back underway in Austria, as Lando Norris begins lap 4 of 70, and it's Norris leading from Piastri, Leclerc, Hamilton, Russell, Gasly, Albon, Bortoleto, Lawson and Alonso. Like I said, outside the top 5, big chance today for the midfield teams to get some big points, as they all come up to turn 4, and Leclerc trying to get close there to the McLaren. So we've got two cars side by side there. Colapinto and Behrman. Behrman pushed off and is trying to come back now as that's Hamilton and Russell side by side. As Russell dive bombs Hamilton, but Hamilton late enough on the brakes to keep ahead, as Russell desperately trying to find his way past. But Hamilton keeps ahead, as DRS will be enabled once Lando crosses the line in a couple moments' time. So Piastri is already within a second of Lando, so we'll have the DRS. And here is Colapinto and Behrman, and I think that's just a bit of a racing incident there between Colapinto and Behrman. But yeah, we'll see what happens with that. As yeah, DRS now enabled, and the DRS definitely has a big effect here, allowing for a lot of overtaking, as we have 3 consecutive DRS zones. As Russell saying on the radio, Lewis just closed the door under braking, as Behrman has this time overtaken Colapinto as Max, which is saying walking back to the hospitality, and same for Antonelli. But I do need to just correct who is on what compound. We've got Gasly up in 6th on the soft tyre, highest placed soft tyre runner. And then you've got Behrman and Colapinto 11th and 12th on the soft tyre. As we're on lap 6, let me just update that. It's Piastri keeping within a second of his teammate, which allows him to have the DRS as Leclerc has dropped 2 seconds behind. And losing second definitely was not part of the master plan for Ferrari, but definitely hurts their race, because now McLaren are going to be pushing hard to get away, especially with the 2 drivers pushing hard for the lead, as Piastri closing in on Lando and going for the move. Is he at turn 4? He puts his car on the inside, but I don't think he was ever properly attempting an overtake there, to be fair. So Norris continues on in...
That was a little bit of a Fernando there.
yeah, the dummy. As... yeah, we've got 3 soft tyre runners outside of the top 10, which is Behrman, Colapinto, and Hulkenberg, as we're now on lap 7. And Leclerc on that lap lost a lot of time to the two McLarens. So yeah, McLaren in a world of their own at the minute. Ferrari are really in a race now just to finish on the podium at this point, as Piastri closes in on Lando up to turn 3. And we have seen Oscar in race situations be better than Lando this season, and this is where Lando really needs to toughen up, as Oscar I don't know if that's the team telling him that or him telling the team, your call on the racing situation. But I think McLaren are just fine to keep going as they are.
Team.
Right. Well, if I'm Oscar Piastri, I want to keep the pressure on. Especially with Verstappen out of this race. If Oscar can win this race, this will be possibly a massive moment in the championship for him. As on lap 8, Lando leading from Piastri, Leclerc in third, 3.5 seconds behind, and losing about 0.8 of a second per lap to the leader. So Ferrari absolutely nowhere near the pace right now, as Piastri still has DRS, but he's nowhere near close enough to actually look at having the chance to overtake. As yeah, Leclerc comfortable enough for now in third, and Lewis Hamilton comfortable enough in fourth. Ferrari having a decent race so far in terms of securing third and fourth. George Russell has dropped a bit further back. That's Pierre Gasly, who is on the soft tyre, has now got a train behind him. And that is probably because Gasly is on that soft compound tyre, which is definitely not the best race tyre. Gasly's probably going to pit in the next 5 laps, I would imagine, to get rid of that compound, as we're on lap 9 of 70. And the gap between Norris and Piastri still about 8-9 tenths, as Piastri now has DRS again up to turn 4. And still trying to apply the pressure. But as a team, if McLaren can keep up this pace, this will be great for them, securing at least a 1-2 ahead of the others, because they're pulling away so quickly from the others that they'll be able to build a good gap. As Alex Albon has passed Gasly for 6th. So Albon up to 6th. And Gasly, I do fear, is going to start dropping through the field pretty quickly. So they might have to bring him in the next maybe couple laps on the soft tyre. Here's a replay of the move. And Gasly not even defending at Albon. He's going straight up the inside. And job well done. As Piastri closer on this occasion by 2 or 3 tenths as they come up to turn 4 on lap 10 of 70. What kind of exit does Piastri get from turn 4? It's a good one, and I think Lando might have to look at defending here possibly. He does to the middle of the track, and Piastri puts his car to the outside. He'll get a better exit, but not good enough to actually look for a move. But Piastri absolutely applying good amounts of pressure as Lando understeers wide through turn 6. And Piastri just needs to keep as close as he is, and he's got Lando exactly where he wants him. As they come into the final couple corners. Leclerc, by the way, already about 5 seconds behind. So, yeah, Ferrari absolutely out of the fight for the win. Way too far back. As Lando does not get a good exit from turn 1. That was Rosberg 2016-esque exit, that was. And Piastri got the outside line. And he gets the move done. Oscar Piastri takes the lead, but only briefly because Lando gets a brilliant exit from turn 4. And he will now have the DRS and the inside line. And Lando closing his DRS there a couple times, but he does retake the position. Piastri, is he going to try and come back in him into turn 6? He's going to go for the inside. Lando is going slightly wider, but keeps the lead. Brilliant racing between the two McLarens, but Nib, surely it's inevitable that Piastri is going to pass and run away with this race.
Well, who knows? Because, I mean, the DRS is ridiculous around this track, but Piastri is certainly showing some very good pace at the moment. You call that perfectly with it being Rosberg 2016 with that turn 1 exit.
Yeah, it was an absolutely awful exit, and thankfully did not lead to a collision up at turn 3 like that time. But Piastri, not as close on this occasion, but as Oliver Behrman is the first to pit from 11th place on the soft tyre. But yeah, it feels to me, even though, like you said, DRS is very powerful here, Piastri feels to me like it's inevitable that he is going to get past. Whether he can pull away quick enough, we'll have to see. As Lance Stroll has just passed Colapinto for what's now 11th, because Behrman has pitted as up the inside. Bortoleto overtakes Pierre Gasly, and Bortoleto is now 7th. Brilliant stuff from the young Brazilian. As Ocon has now passed Stroll, who was repassed by Colapinto. As we're on lap 13, I'll update the tyre situation in a moment, especially with Behrman, who has gone onto the hard tyre, interestingly. The only driver out there on the hard tyre is Piastri, still within a second of Lando, but not close enough for an overtake. Pierre Gasly now pits. He was on the soft tyre, and yeah, right decision to come in. Hülkenberg also, who was on the soft tyre, pitting as well. So Hülkenberg will drop to the very back, and Pierre Gasly will come out in 15th, ahead of Behrman and then Hülkenberg. So, let me just update that everyone now in the top 10 is on the medium compound tyre. Colapinto is now 11th. Esteban Ocon up into 10th. Ocon is having another one of those races again where he makes loads of progress and he's really quick. And he's up into the top 10. Keep an eye on Ocon. As lap 14, Piastri still keeping within a second of his teammate. But yeah, Colapinto is the highest placed driver left out there on the soft, as Alex Albon now pits. And Oliver Behrman actually has jumped Pierre Gasly with that earlier pit stop, as Colapinto pitting as well. So Behrman is ahead of Gasly. So Behrman's in a net top 10 position now, as Bortoletto now up to 6th because of Albon's stop. Stroll 10th, Tsunoda 11th, Hadjar 12th, and actually Behrman overtook Gasly, presumably right after Gasly came out of the pits on cold tyres. Got a great exit from turn 3. And then with the DRS, gets the move done. So Behrman now 13th, but in a net top 10 position, as Lando Norris clearly has been slow in the final couple corners because Piastri's all over the back of him into turn 1, but doesn't decide to go for the move. It would be stupid to go for the move there. There's still DRS zones to come, as Piastri now up to turn 3. Just needs to position his car well to get a good exit. And he does. It's not the greatest exit, but it's still good enough. As the DRS is open, can Piastri pass Norris? No, he just didn't have enough momentum. But he does get a good exit. Can Lando continue to hang on here? We'll see. But Alex Albon actually is 13th, ahead of Behrman, Gasly, Hulkenberg, and Colapinto. So, Piastri not as close on this occasion. But still keeping within a second. And that's the key here, is Piastri just keeping within the DRS and keeping Lando under this massive amount of pressure. As they come through turn 3. Piastri doesn't get the greatest of exits there, and will stay behind, as we should be nearing the pit stop phase soon. As I think Leclerc's being told to lift and coast. Yeah, he is. In all corners, every lap.
Oh, man.
As Alex Albon has got an issue because he's pitted again for some reason. That's why Lando lost time to Piastri. He went wide in the final couple corners. And lucky to get away with still having the lead. And yet, Albon is out. What a shame. He was running up in 6th. And he's out of the race. Both Williamses are out. And already 4 cars out of this Grand Prix. And we're only a quarter of the way through the Grand Prix, as we're on lap 17. And Piastri keeping up the pressure. What I was going to ask you, Nib, was obviously pit stops are coming soon. Who do you think McLaren are going to prioritise here? Because Piastri's clearly looking the quicker driver, even though, yes, he has the DRS. He's looking more likely to win this, wouldn't you say?
I think it's a default answer. You pit the guy who's in the lead first.
I think especially given how far behind Leclerc is, I think probably, yeah, that's the right decision. If Leclerc was only a couple seconds behind, though, it would be interesting to see what they would do. As that's Tsunoda colliding with Lance Stroll. And that's probably going to be a 5-second penalty, because I think Tsunoda pretty clearly caused a collision there. So Tsunoda did get the move done, though. So Tsunoda is up to 10th place, but he's probably got some front wing damage now. And yeah, that incident has been noted. as we're on lap 18. And yeah, we're about a quarter, just over a quarter of the way through this Grand Prix. And your top 10, Norris, Piastri, Leclerc, Hamilton, Russell, Bortoletto 6th, Lawson 7th, Alonso 8th, Ocon 9th, Tsunoda in 10th. And already 4 cars out of this race. The 2 Williamses of Albon and Sainz, the world champion Max Verstappen, and Kimi Antonelli. As Piastri, keeping within a second. Both McLaren's definitely not going to pit yet. But Leclerc in third is about 6.5 seconds off the lead. So I think McLaren will probably want to wait until maybe lap 25 at the latest before they come in. So that in case Ferrari do go for a one-stop race compared to McLaren, that McLaren will still have enough pace and fresh tyres to get it done. As George Russell pits for Mercedes. Russell was in the middle of nowhere, really. Russell and Tsunoda also pitting. Russell has come out on another set of medium compound tyres, and Russell will come out, I think, in 11th position, will it be? As Tsunoda has pitted and comes out 16th. And then, Russell 11th. Gasly has repassed Behrman. And, I'll let you guys know what tyre Tsunoda is on in a moment. As McLaren look like they might be readying a pit stop. They have almost a full pit stops gap to Bortoletto in 5th. But I don't think they should pit just yet. As Piastri closer on this occasion to Norris. Still not close enough, I don't think, to go for a move. As they come down to turn 4. As Piastri... Oh, he's so lucky that he controlled the brakes there. Because that looked like he was about to punt his teammate straight off the track and out of this race. That was a very close call, as Lando told to box, thankfully. McLaren pit wall just completely soiled themselves on the pit wall. As Norris now in the pits. Piastri continues on as Ocon has pitted and is now at the back of all the cars still in this Grand Prix. As Lando, 3.1 seconds, not the best of stops. As Norris should come out just ahead of Bortoletto, who is having a brilliant race. Now in 5th is Bortoletto. So Norris...
I would imagine it won't matter too much, that slow stop, because Piastri got compromised, of course, on the the entry of turn 9 as well.
True. And hopefully, for Piastri's sake, his front tyres are not too badly damaged after that lockup. But McLaren have just, Oscar has just said, I have a flat spot, because McLaren have just said, right, let's see what the pace is like in free air. Here's a replay, and so close, wasn't it, to disaster? I thought that was a definite accident waiting to happen, but just about got away with it.
Same, and I was pretty confident that Piastri was going to have a look there on this lap to try and make sure he got first preference at the pit stops. But yeah, that was nearly not very good.
As Oscar has stayed out, as Bortoletto now pits. And we'll see where Bortoletto comes out, as McLaren telling Oscar the flat spot and the data looks okay. And Oscar says, yes, not pleasant, but okay. And Bortoleto will come out just behind his teammate, who's passing Oliver Bearman for 12th place. Those hard tyres are not working out very well for Bearman, because I'm pretty sure Bearman pitted about the same time as Hulkenberg, but yeah, Bearman struggling. So, Bortoleto 13th, just behind Bearman in 12th, as we're on lap 23 of 70. And let's see who's on what compound. George Russell is in 9th on the medium. Pierre Gasly is the one of the only top 10 runners on the hard tyre. Lando Norris is on the hard tyre. And if Piastri, by the way, was to pit now, Piastri would come out 2 or 3 seconds behind Lando.
Yeah, just lost a second on that lap with Lando having the fresher tyres, so I would expect Piastri to pit on this lap.
Yeah, he should be in very soon, as the final couple runners in the field, Ocon and Tsunoda, as Ocon has actually just passed Tsunoda. They're on the hard compound tyres. So, yeah, we'll see when Piastri comes in, but he has started another lap, as this is Bortoleto passing Bearman for 12th place. And Bearman not fighting it. So, Piastri, yeah, if Piastri was to pit now, he'll come out 3 or 4 seconds behind Lando. He will come out, though, a few seconds clear of Lawson, so he will have quite a bit of clear air, will Piastri, on those fresher tyres. Ferrari, though, still close enough to where they could maybe go for a one-stop race still, as Piastri told to box. And McLaren, yeah, are preparing for that pit
and
stop.
It was Piastri's preference to go a little bit longer.
Yeah, and we'll see just how quickly he can get back up to the back of his teammate, as lap 25, Piastri comes in, and slightly slower pit stop than his teammate, but no problem. And now it is a Ferrari 1-2 and a McLaren 3-4, but obviously McLaren have pitted. Ferrari have not. And yeah, at this point, let's see what Ferrari are going to do. Because I think if McLaren are on a 2-stop strategy, then the only chance Ferrari have got now is going for the one-stopper. So we'll see what Ferrari do now in response. As here's a replay of Piastri pitting. Quite bumpy, the entry to that first pit. But yeah, good enough pit stop. As no, Ferrari not going to bother going for the one stopper, as Leclerc comes in at the end of lap 25. As Lance Stroll was just lost a couple positions in one go to Hadjar and Russell. Hadjar has actually pitted already. He pitted at the end of the first lap. As Leclerc comes out right behind the battle for now 4th place between Lawson and Alonso. So Leclerc is in 6th place. as Lawson and Alonso. On the mediums, as this is Bortoletto, stuck in a train as Lewis Hamilton now told to box down. Lance Stroll is being overtaken by quite a few cars. That's what all this overtaking business is about, as Gasly has just got past. Now Hülkenberg and Bortoletto will pass very quickly, I'm sure, in a moment. And he does. So Stroll has gone from 7th down to 12th in about 2 laps. As Lewis Hamilton, 2.2 second stop. Ferrari have been very good on the pit stops this year. And Hamilton is heading for a comfortable 4th place in this race. As we're looking at Leclerc here, overtaking Alonso for 4th. So McLaren back into the lead, and in terms of the fight for the win, it is a fight between Norris and Piastri. Ferrari out of play, they're just trying to secure a podium at this point. And Piastri, 6.5 seconds he is off the lead. As Liam Lawson now up to 3rd, as Bortoletto now passes the French Pierre Gasly up to 10th. Hülkenberg's having a good recovery here. Hülkenberg is now up to 9th and really pushing hard. So both Saubers looking good here. As we're on lap 28, nearing half race distance. As feedback from the pit wall to Piastri is that the manoeuvre at turn 4 was too marginal. No shit. As Leclerc passes Lawson for 3rd. So Leclerc now in 3rd, and that's where Leclerc should finish this Grand Prix.
Wire feedback from McLaren. No fucking shit. He actually would have been pooping his pants as well.
Yeah, Captain Obvious on the pit wall there at McLaren. But now we wait for the slow burn of Piastri's comeback. We're now on lap 29. Out of 70, as Bortoletto has now passed Hülkenberg. Hülkenberg presumably made it easy. And he did. Hülkenberg let Bortoletto through up to turn 3. So there you go. As Lewis Hamilton has just overtaken Fernando Alonso in the last lap or so. As Isaac Hadjar pits for the 2nd time. So the top 10 is now Norris, Piastri, Leclerc, Lawson, Hamilton, Alonso, Russell, Bortoletto, Hülkenberg, and Gasly. Midfield, I have to say, is very, very close. As Hamilton here, kicking up a slight bit of dirt, trying to go around the outside of Lawson if he can. And ultimately he does. Great move. And Hamilton up to 4th. Ferrari heading for a good points haul, given they simply don't have the pace that McLaren have up front. So, yeah, there you go. Oliver Behrman is 11th, and then I think it's Colapinto, Ocon, Tsunoda, Hadjar, and Stroll, I believe, is the rest of the field. Actually, Ocon is 12th, but we're on lap 30 now out of 70. Still 40 laps to go. Plenty of time for Oscar Piastri to come back at Lando Norris. He's got 4-lap fresher tyres. As Gasly says, I have no grip. Fucking crazy. I'm about to spin every corner. Yeah, he's on the hard tyre, which hasn't been working too well for him. As
oh my God, he's nowhere.
Tsunoda just got, I think, tried to overtake Colapinto, but Colapinto got the move done. And Tsunoda up the inside. And, collision and spins Colapinto round. That was so fucking clumsy. Thankfully, Colapinto's got going again, but that was as clumsy as it could have possibly been.
Jeez.
And that will be another penalty for Tsunoda if he didn't get one for the Stroll incident. And he's coming in, Tsunoda, so he's either got a puncture or he's broke his suspension. And here's a replay, and it just looked inevitable, didn't it, that he was going to hit him?
Yeah. Well, let's see if he's been stinker and hooked here. That's shambolic. Yeah, terrible.
Yeah, and Tsunoda, he's coming in for a new front wing. The run he's been on, I think I saw a stat that the last 5 races, his qualifying results are the worst run that any Red Bull driver has ever had in qualifying. And that even includes the days where they were in the midfield and they had Coulthard and Clean in the car. So, Tsunoda having an absolutely horrid season. But, I mean, at this point, it doesn't matter who you put in that car. It doesn't seem to work no matter what. It's the most cursed seat in Formula One.
I think there's about 2 drivers you could put in that car, and they might be able to get very close to Max. That certainly not a lot of drivers could do a very good job.
Yeah. As we just saw a shot of Flavio Briatore on the Alpine pit wall. Alpine still only just have a car in the points, but Gasly is about to be overtaken by Ocon, who having a good race. Ocon, remember, started 17th, and he's now about to overtake Gasly for 10th. Does a switchback through turn 4. Can he get a good enough run? Gonna have to dive to the inside, I think. Gasly defends the middle. Runs wide, though. And, they so nearly made contact. But Gasly just about keeps ahead of his old teammate. But, yeah, Ocon is going to get this move done eventually as Liam Lawson comes in. One thing I must say is George Russell has absolutely 0 pace. He's only a couple seconds ahead of Bortoleto, who's on quite a bit fresher tyres. So, and Bortoleto, I think, is lapping at about the same pace. So that Mercedes is absolutely nowhere in this race. As Ocon up the inside and up to 10th. And now actually 9th because Lawson's pit. And Lawson comes out in 12th place on the hard tyre. Lawson probably going to go to the end. So on a one-stopper there. And yes, Tsunoda's been given a 10-second penalty. So if they can find a reason to retire his car, they may as well do so. Because there's nothing they can do at this point. But, and here comes Alonso, who is also on that one-stop strategy. Yeah, George Russell is 13 seconds behind Lewis Hamilton and about 16 behind Leclerc. And Russell, after 34 laps, is about 31, 32 seconds off the lead. So he's been losing about a second a lap as Russell to the leader. So that, yeah, Mercedes has had 0 pace today.
Yeah, Russell is indeed 35 seconds off the lead.
Yeah, that is alarmingly bad. And Alonso drops just behind Lawson into 12th. And like I said, Russell is only 2 to 3 seconds ahead of Bortoletto. Sauber now 6th and 7th in this race. Having a brilliant one. Hulkenberg, remember, started last on the grid, and he is currently in 7th. As it stands, Hulkenberg will be moving into the top 10 of the championship if it stays this way. As we're looking at Behrman, who's about to pass the Alpine that's struggling on the hard tyres. But let me just update that Ocon and Gasly are on the hard tyre. Ocon as well, shout out to him. Started 17th and he's now 8th. He loves these comeback drives, Ocon. He always starts low down and then somehow he ends up 7th or 8th by the end of the Grand Prix. As Behrman tried to overtake Gasly there. Gasly's tried to come back, but Behrman gets the move done and up to 9th. So both Haas's in the points. 8th and 9th. One driver, though, to keep an eye on is Isaac Hadjar, who has pitted for a second time. Obviously pitted at the end of lap 1. Not far off the points, and he only pitted a few laps ago, so he might still come back into things and may still grab a point. So we'll keep an eye on him. As out front, Piastri has not closed the gap massively, but it has gone down to 5.5 seconds. As Leclerc is almost 20 seconds off the lead in third. As we're now on board.
Yeah, I mean,
Go on.
Gasly is just so slow. He's about a second off everyone else who's around him at the moment.
Yeah, I'm not sure why, because it's not like he's the only driver on the hard tyre. There's quite a few of them now. But yeah, he's constantly under pressure. He's going to be overtaken by Lawson and Alonso in the next couple of laps. As that was a great move there by Hadjar on Colapinto. So Hadjar up to 13th. And yeah, Isaac is only, I think, 6 seconds or so away from a point at the moment. But yeah, Gasly, I'd imagine, will pit again because he pitted quite early from the soft tyre. And I think ultimately that hasn't helped either, starting on the soft, having to pit earlier. And then, yeah, it's just compounded his race. As on lap 38, Piastri's got the gap down to about 5.2 seconds. So again, the gap is coming down. It's just gradual. And as they're just showing on screen, over the last 4 laps, Piastri has took about, what, 7 tenths out of Lando. So the battle for victory will come again, but it's going to be a slow burn until Piastri eventually catches back up. Obviously, McLaren may go to the end without pitting again. We'll have to see. But yeah, Piastri, I think it feels to me like he's catching Norris even more quickly now than he was a few laps ago. Because
yeah, he's
4.5 seconds now.
Starting to push now.
Yeah, he's really getting after Lando as Lewis Hamilton's just in the purple middle sector.
Yes. The Ferraris and Leclerc are very the Ferraris and Leclerc. The Ferraris and Piastri are very well matched at the moment. Actually, they're doing the exact same lap times.
Yeah, and of course they all pretty much Piastri and those two Ferraris pitted around the same time. Lando pitted a few laps before, as Gasly does now pit, surely for a set of medium compound tyres if he has any. And yet it will be a set of medium compound tyres. So Gasly, let's see what he can do. But I'd be amazed if he scores a point at this rate, because his race really fell apart in that middle stint, as he will come out in 15th place. As that is Lance Stroll overtaking Colapinto, who's also out there struggling on medium tyres. So Alpine are now 14th and 15th. And the last three runners on the mediums. As we are about to move on to lap 41. Piastri still closing the gap down, now 4.2 seconds. As I think this is a McLaren that is about to lap Colapinto. And
Yes, Norris.
And he was held up a bit there on the entry to turn. And look at Piastri's gained a second from that. Held up into the entry and turn, or the penultimate corner, I think turn 9 it is, isn't it?
Yep.
And Norris has been cost dearly there.
Payback for Canada with these idiots holding up Piastri for 15 laps.
Yeah, it's ridiculous in Canada, the amount of traffic towards the end there. As 3.3 seconds between Norris and Piastri. And Lando now is in the midst of the traffic, and there's plenty of traffic to lap. So you're going to have to hope he deals with it better than how that went. As Oliver Behrman has pitted. So Lawson now up to 9th place. And Behrman is on the medium tyre. We'll watch out for Behrman. Should be decently quick in these final 30 laps or so. As on lap 32, gap 3 seconds flat between the two McLarens. But if I was a betting man, I would still back Oscar Piastri at this moment to win this race, especially if the two McLarens don't have to pit again. As we're looking at Alonso about to overtake one of his new best friends he's made on the grid this last year or so. Liam Lawson. And let's hope for plenty of wheel banging, as we usually get between these two. But Lawson and Alonso could end up finishing 6th and 7th in this race if this one-stop strategy really does work out. So these two heading for really great result. And obviously these points, massive for these midfield teams. Sauber currently heading for 14 points in 6th and 7th. If Sauber were to finish there, then I think Sauber would move up to 6th in the championship. As Alonso just not able to get close enough to really have a go at Lawson. Looking at the speed trap earlier, these two teams had about the same straight line speed, so there's no real advantage here. As Colapinto has pitted and is now last of all. As the two McLarens are still lapping the traffic. I think they're just both trying to get past Lance Stroll. As Hulkenberg pits from 7th. Hulkenberg did a pretty long stint there. He pitted quite early from the soft tyre, but that was a really good stint on the medium. And he goes on to another set of mediums. Let's see what Hulkenberg can do. Can he score points for the 3rd time in 4 races? As, thankfully for Norris, he laps Hulkenberg straight out of the pits. As Hulkenberg is 11th. As Piastri laps Stroll. And next car to lap for Oscar will be Hulkenberg, but Hulkenberg's come out with fresh tyres, so won't be the easiest to lap.
Annoyingly for Piastri, Stroll didn't give him DRS.
Yeah, the gap it's just crept back up a bit. 3.5 seconds between Lando and Oscar. As let me just update that Hulkenberg is on the medium compound tyres on lap 45. Still another 25 laps remain. Still plenty of time left for Oscar Piastri to win this race. This traffic isn't helping much. As George Russell, by the way, is now a pit stop behind Lewis Hamilton, who is the car ahead of him, which just shows you how slow Mercedes have been today. Russell is still losing a second a lap to the leaders. As Piastri getting a bit of dirty air ahead of Hulkenberg, I think it is. And starting to drop lap time. As Lando Norris begins lap 46th. Now we're looking at Charles Leclerc in 3rd, who is about to lap Tsunoda. Ferrari, given that they're doing the same strategy as McLaren, they are doing the best they can, so you can't really criticise Ferrari. 3rd and 4th is a good result, considering they are clearly slower than McLaren. As Russell has been told to pit. And he will have to do quite a bit of overtaking, Russell, to get back to 5th place.
Going to come out behind Alonso.
Yeah, as 2.9 second stop. And yeah, he's going to come out just ahead of Isaac Hadjar, I think. Barely. Actually, no, Hadjar comes out just ahead. So he's in 10th place. So, yeah, there you go. Russell going to end up even further off the lead by the end of this race because he's committed to a 2-stop race when I think the top 4 are on a 1-stopper probably at this point, as Russell immediately overtakes Hadjar for 9th. So Bortoletto now 5th for Sauber.
Hulkenberg coming out on fresh tyres, right ahead of Piastri, has not been very helpful for Oscar. He's lost about half a second since Hulkenberg's come out the pit lane, but he should get past him now on the overtaking DRS straight, and he has. So he's now clear of Hulkenberg. So you'd hope he'd rein in the time a little bit more again now.
Yeah, that was a bad few laps for Piastri. He's not lost a ton of time, He's only lost a few tenths, but still could be key at the end of this race. Russell, by the way, is only a few seconds ahead of Lando Norris on the circuit. So Russell, he's not going to get lapped, but point is that, yeah, he's close to being lapped. Just shows you how poor they've been. So Piastri just lost a lot of time. Gap up to 4.3 seconds now.
Must have been turn 1.
Yeah. As we're on board with the front wing of Lewis Hamilton, who runs off the track at turn 3. But Hamilton and Ferrari comfortably 3rd and 4th. Ferrari have enough of a gap to pit both cars. And here is a replay. And yeah, caught some oversteering, went off. And then Hamilton, pretty much the same in turn 3. As now we are looking at the Haas of Behrman diving up the inside of Lance Stroll. As Behrman is somehow trying to get points here, but I don't think he's going to end up in the points at this rate. I think it's a bit too far back with the amount of laps remaining, but he's still going to try anyway. And Behrman up to 12th. As that is Behrman's dad, David, in the Haas pit wall they just showed on the broadcast. As on lap 50, Lando Norris 4.2 seconds clear of Piastri. As Leclerc told to box, and yeah, Ferrari are just covering off any possible tyre issues by getting Leclerc in on a set of mediums. So Leclerc down to 4th, but Lewis Hamilton will pit in a moment, so I'll just wait till Hamilton pits before correcting who's on what compound and who's in what position and all that. But the top 10, with 20 laps to go, it's Norris leading by 4.2 seconds over Piastri, Hamilton 3rd, Leclerc 4th, Bortoletto, who's now pitting, from 5th, and then it is Ocon 6th, Lawson 7th, Alonso 8th, Russell 9th, and Isaac Hadjar 10th. Bortoletto, though, will drop to 10th place and will come out, I think, just ahead of Piastri. Piastri, though, should be able to lap him pretty much instantly. And yeah, he will. So that's good for Oscar. And I don't think there's any cars in between the two McLarens at the minute.
That's correct.
As Lewis Hamilton pits. So yeah, Ferrari 3rd and 4th. Another 2.2 second stop. Brilliant work from the Ferrari pit crew this year. So Ferrari absolutely securing 3rd and 4th in this Grand Prix. Yeah, Bortoletto now in 10th place. Obviously, he was always committed to a 2-stop race because he used 2 sets of medium tyres. As now Ocon pits. So now Liam Lawson is up to 5th, Alonso 6th. And Ocon should come out in between Hulkenberg and Behrman as on lap 52. Ocon, though, is going to be quick.
It's amazing. Sorry, Chaz. It's amazing, isn't it? Like, I reckon this is the first time I've ever seen Ferrari be elite at pit stops, and they've been consistently elite all year.
Just exactly when they, it doesn't matter if they are. That's the funny thing
Yeah.
about it. When it's been least important, they've been the best team this year with the pit stops. As Ocon has just come out just ahead of Behrman, so Ocon should be pretty quick on those hard tires, and obviously now a lap down as Lando Norris pits. Let's see what the pit stop's like. It's a good one. 2.5 seconds. Piastri now goes into the lead. Piastri's going to have to do some effort from now on these few laps into the pits, you'd imagine, and then to the end of the race if he's going to somehow win this. As Lando Norris comes out right ahead of Tsunoda, who is obviously a lap down. So Norris is now on the medium, which obviously Piastri will go on to at the end of this lap, who's been told to box. As Piastri pushes as hard as he can, as Lewis Hamilton does the fastest lap, a 1 minute 9.1. And into the pit lane, the Australian goes. And into the pit box. Absolutely brilliant pit stop. But Lando Norris will, right about now, retake the lead with just over 15 laps remaining. As Piastri comes out right behind Tsunoda and Colapinto. And Colapinto, even worse for Piastri, is about to overtake Tsunoda. So Oscar is going to get royally held up here. As Colapinto goes deep. Tsunoda goes back underneath. What are you doing, Colapinto? Get the fuck out of the way. That's
fucking ridiculous.
That's black flag worthy. That is. That was, if that had fully happened, that would have been one of the worst things I'd ever seen. Here's a replay, and Colapinto went deep, Tsunoda got the position back, and then he literally squeezed Piastri onto the grass.
Give him a drive-through penalty.
Yeah. He's got to get a massive penalty for that. That was absolutely disgraceful.
And Piastri had actually done a tremendous in-lap. It was only 3.3 seconds when he come in, and that was with Norris having done, obviously, the in-lap. So the out-lap on those fresh mediums. So that's...
Yeah.
I prefer not to speak.
As Colapinto now does eventually pass Tsunoda in clean fashion. But yeah, that was absolutely disgraceful. Piastri is catching Norris now, though. He's took the gap from 4.3 to 3.8, as we're just seeing here. Russell overtaking Lawson for 5th. So Russell's going to secure 5th now. But, I mean, when I saw Piastri pull alongside, I was thinking, surely not. And, yeah.
Oh, I mean, Norris has been held up the whole entire last sector by Gasly. as well. So both McLarens getting absolutely royally fucked by traffic at the moment.
Yeah, some of these drivers really need to get their act together when it comes to letting cars through. It was quite horrible in Canada for all the front runners, as Piastri does a fastest lap of 108.5 and the gap down to 3.3. So he's given it everything now, is Oscar. As Alonso still only half a second or so behind Lawson, which I think he has been for the whole Grand Prix. As Bortoleto is about to overtake Hadjar for 8th. Here we go. Bortoleto has done it. He's up to 8th place. And he's got about 9 seconds or so to catch Alonso and Lawson. Bortoleto can still finish in 6th, but he's got to push hard if he wants it. As we are now on board with Alonso, who is, again, been chasing Lawson the whole afternoon. And Piastri, another fastest lap of 108.2.
I'm even more annoyed because it should be 2.2 seconds.
Yeah. At that moment might actually cost him having another chance. That's ridiculous. 5-second time penalty for Colapinto. How is he got a less of a penalty than Tsunoda? That is ridiculous. Don't ask me in the chat. Don't ask me to explain why the FIA have given him a 5-second penalty there. That should have been at least a 10-second, if not a full-on drive-through. But yeah. As Hulkenberg has just passed Hadjar for 9th. Crucial move, obviously, for Sauber. And Hadjar, I think, because, obviously, of what happened to him at the start and having to pit early, I think that's going to end up costing him a point here. Because Ocon and Behrman, I think, will overtake him. And there you go. That's a replay of Hulkenberg passing Hadjar. 8th and 9th currently for Sauber. Might get better yet, though. As Alonso closing in on Lawson up to turn 3. Bortoleto, by the way, I don't think will be catching these two because he's not going quickly enough to be able to do so. Piastri does another fastest lap, 108.1. Gap 3.1 seconds now as Ocon now overtakes Hadjar for what is now 10th place. So Hadjar is absolutely falling through the field at a vast rate of knots. So Ocon in 10th. And as it stands in the midfield, Racing Bulls will be going back up to 6th in the championship. And will be only, I think, 19 points or so behind Williams. Williams have had a comfortable season so far in the midfield, but it's about to get a lot tougher. Because Racing Bulls, Williams, we've heard, have said they're not going to develop their car anymore. Racing Bulls, though, have every reason to keep developing their car for the rest of the year. Because, I mean, who cares where they're at next year? And they've got a good car, so why not just keep pushing and keep developing this one? So, Racing Bulls, I do fancy they might still yet finish 5th in the championship. As Oscar Piastri has the gap down to 2.5 seconds. With 10 laps to go, as Lando Norris is now trying to lap Isaac Hadjar, who is going very slowly. And Norris getting held up quite a bit there through turn 6 and 7. And eventually gets past. And the next car to lap will be Ocon, but Ocon's another 3.5 seconds up the road. On lap 61.
Traffic going to play quite a large determining factor here, you think?
Yeah, especially if Ocon can catch Hulkenberg and they have a bit of a scrap, then that might really hurt Norris. As Piastri has got the gap under 2 seconds now. This is going to be mighty close.
Piastri caught Hadjar at the perfect time there. Was able to get DRS. Clean, uninhibited run.
As they come into now the final part of the middle sector. As Lando saying on the radio, I need some pace, please help. And Lando being told that the main pace difference is in the high speed, along with obviously the traffic playing its part. As the gap, 1.9 seconds as they start lap 62. And Piastri's just got to keep pushing. If he can get within a second of Lando in these next 3 or 4 laps, then I think Lando's going to have to do some job to keep Oscar behind. As now Lando has caught Ocon, but Ocon is not going to let him through just yet. Ocon's trying to push after Hulkenberg, who's only a couple seconds up the road. And oh, look at that. Lando understeering wide at turn 4. That's going to hurt. And now Ocon lets him go, but that would have hurt. And Piastri now 1.6 behind Lando. Will Ocon let Piastri through? Yes, he does. Even though Oscar has to move offline. As they come out of the final corner. 1.6 on lap 63.
Yeah, there's nothing until Hulkenberg.
Yeah, Hulkenberg, though, is only, I think, yeah, you just see him on the broadcast. He's only 1.5 seconds, 2 seconds away, so. And then Bortoletto's only another 3 seconds ahead of him. So this, basically the 2 Saubers, and then probably Alonso and Lawson as well. So still traffic to contend with. But on this lap, Lando has been quicker by a couple tenths of a second. As Lando comes into the final couple corners and now is getting in the dirty air of the Sauber ahead. And yeah, Oscar lost 1/4 of a second on that lap. But he needs to keep pushing. Because like we saw, as I obviously referenced earlier, that 2016 race, it can come down to the last lap here as to who wins at the Red Bull Ring. As the 2 McLarens come down the straight towards turn 4. Lando getting a bit held up behind Hulkenberg. And he's lost about 1/10 there, being behind into turn 4. And McLaren telling Lando that he has a bit of damage on his front wing. Interesting. But Oscar now getting held up a bit behind Hulkenberg in the final couple corners, and now the gap up to 2.2 seconds. These last couple laps have not been kind to Piastri, but he will now get DRS from behind the Sauber, and that will help him bring him right back into play. As on the exit of turn 3, it's 1.8 seconds. The next car to lap is
evened out.
There's Bortoletto, who's another 3 seconds, 4 seconds or so up the road.
Who's rapidly catching that Sonoda. Sonoda's actually in there as a lapped car.
Yeah.
Alonso Lawson pack.
Yeah, they're really dropping time now. To think Lawson and Alonso's tyres have fallen off the cliff, and there you go. You can now see it all through turn 1. So the McLarens have got to make their way through all of that. And even though there is 5 full laps remaining, still a long way to go with all that traffic ahead of them. As through turn 3, what's the gap like on the exit? 1.8 seconds. As Piastri slightly quicker on this lap so far. And yeah, that traffic is going to be so difficult to navigate for Lando in these final couple laps or so. You almost, if you're Lando, you almost don't want to catch them and keep away from them. But if you do that, then Piastri's going to catch. As we're now lap 67, they're lapping at about the same speed, the two McLarens. Ultimately, though, Nib, you would imagine Lando just about will hang on here. I think Piastri, with that Colapinto incident, has ended up being...
Literally because of fucking Colapinto.
Yeah. That's ended up costing him from having a chance to get in the DRS, hasn't it?
Yes.
As Behrman, we're seeing on the little mini screen, is trying to overtake Hadjar for 11th. And DRS open, he gets the move done into turn 4. So Behrman up to 11th place. As Lando Norris begins lap 68. As Bortoletto now only 2 to 3 tenths behind Alonso. These are crucial points for Sauber. Bortoletto's got to get this done. He gets the DRS up to turn 4. Can he force Alonso to defend? Alonso doesn't really defend, but Bortoletto didn't feel like he was close enough to go for a move there. But what about down to turn 4? No. And that is worst case scenario for Norris, that Bortoletto hasn't passed Alonso there. As Alonso, Bortoletto really losing the rear end there through turn 6. And yeah, this is just going to hold up the cars behind Alonso, which of course include those two McLarens trying to lap and get their way through. As Lando Norris begins lap 69, Piastri 1.7 seconds behind now as Bortoletto. Can he this time around get the move done? He's not going to finish in 6th, but can he take this position away from Alonso for 7th? As Norris and Piastri lap Sonoda and Bortoletto up the inside. He gets the move done. Alonso gets the switchback, though, as he's so great at, and gets the move done again and has the DRS. But Bortoleto, will he send it? No. Bortoleto gets a great run through turn 4. Can he get a move done here? No, Alonso shuts the door. But again, that is even worse for Lando Norris. Norris needs...
It was 1.4 seconds.
Yeah, Norris needs Alonso to be overtaken here because it's just holding up him even more as Norris is now let through. But Bortoleto has not let through Piastri. He will on the pit straight. As both McLarens on the final lap have got DRS, but Lando should keep ahead now of Piastri as Lando now laps Alonso. Can Bortoleto use that to try and get past? He's going to try and get a great run he can through turn 4. But Alonso, smart as hell, he's going to get the DRS. Is he going to try and come back at Norris? Surely not. But Bortoleto trying to get a great exit, but he just cannot get the power down enough. And I think Alonso, brilliantly, is going to hang on for 7th place. What a race, though, from Bortoleto. But Lando Norris has been the king of the Styrian Mountains this weekend and is about to take his first ever win in Austria. Through the final couple corners he comes, and for the first time in 24 years, McLaren win the Austrian Grand Prix. And it's a 1-2 for McLaren. Norris wins, Piastri 2nd, and then it will be Leclerc 3rd, Hamilton 4th, Russell 5th. Russell ended up, I think, over a minute off the lead in the end. Absolutely embarrassing race for Mercedes. Lawson 6th. Alonso 7th, Bortoleto 8th, Hulkenberg 9th, Ocon 10th, then Behrman 11th, Hadjar 12th, Gasly 13th, Lance Stroll in 14th, Colapinto 15th, Yuki Tsunoda 16th, and your retirements today, Albon, Verstappen, Antonelli, and not even starting the race, Carlos Sainz. Well, that was going to be possibly very dramatic, but like we said, Nib, that Colapinto incident, that cost Oscar to have a go, ultimately. But Lando has took the race win. What are your thoughts after that?
I mean, pretty good Grand Prix. I mean, the two McLarens are very, very close the whole entire race. Couldn't really split them. Oscar not getting in that final lap in Q3 because of Pierre Gasly. I mean, seriously, the Alpines this weekend, they can go sod off. But great win by Norris. I mean, him getting back past Piastri after Piastri got him at turn 2, that was very well played. Getting a better exit, getting the DRS. Managed to hold off and withstand all of that pressure in the first stint, and then held his cool the rest of the Grand Prix with Piastri closing in on him. But yeah, a good response by Norris after Canada. And now we are on to Silverstone.
Absolutely. The British Grand Prix, of course, next weekend. Cannot wait to see what we'll get there. But I'm just quickly doing the driver of the day vote. And there you go, the poll in the chat. The driver of the day options, Lando Norris, Liam Lawson, Nico Hulkenberg, and Esteban Ocon. I think driver of the day, I would have to go Hulkenberg, given that he started last on the grid and ended up 9th. That is a terrific drive from Hulkenberg. So yeah, driver of the day has to be the Hulk, who lately has been one of the top drivers on the grid in that Sauber. Great, obviously, for Bortoleto, first points in Formula 1. Liam Lawson, I think first top 6 finish for him in his career. Point for Ocon, great result for him as well. Shout out to him, started 17th. But yeah, like you said, I thought that was a pretty good race. It wasn't a classic, but it was a very competitive one.
There was
And
always something going on, and we've not had that very often this season.
exactly. And yeah, the midfield was incredibly close today, as it usually is. And yeah, if only Colapinto didn't act like a complete idiot, then I think Piastri could have had a real go. And who knows who would have won the race in that alternate universes. There is Alonso. That's great to see him having a little hug there with Bortoletto. Of course, Bortoletto is signed up with the I think management that Alonso has. So Alonso very obviously keen to see him do well. And a great race, obviously, from Fernando, who started 11th. Yeah, that was a good race. Let's see quickly what you guys have to say. I am going to go, or this stream will obviously end in a couple minutes because I will have to quickly open my window. Because yeah, it's like a sauna in here.
It's 20 degrees outside.
Uh, Looney Classic says Oscar should have pitted right after Lando pitted the first time out. Maybe, but I think it was worth going a few laps longer to have them fresher tires. But yeah, no Bortoletto option for driver of the day. Chaz gave it to Hulkenberg for last points in that car is impressive indeed. Bortoletto had a great race, but in terms of where he started, Bortoletto finished where he started from. So Hulkenberg coming from last to ninth, has to be a better drive. And yeah, Sauber scored 6 points in that race, but unfortunately for them, so did Aston Martin. So I think the Constructors' Championship, it's now Racing Bull 6th, Haas 7th, and 1 point clear of Aston Martin. And then Sauber are 2 points behind Aston Martin. So the fight from 6th to 9th is very, very close. Is Doohan back next weekend? I have no idea.
I don't think so, but he
No.
should.
Yeah, especially after that performance from Colapinto. Lawson got some redemption today. Yeah, great job by Lawson. 6th in qualifying, 6th in the race. That's a top weekend. And salvaging his career after what a disastrous start to the year in both the Red Bull and the Racing Bulls. And yeah, quickly, obviously to end off, the Drivers' Championship, Oscar Piastri is 15 points clear of Lando Norris, but he is 61 points clear of Max Verstappen. So, if you're an Oscar Piastri fan, then you've got to be feeling pretty confident, especially with Verstappen having retired from the race. And even though Piastri didn't win, that is still, given that I still believe that Max is going to be likely the closest challenger for Piastri, that is as good as a win, given that Max retired and Oscar finished where he did. So even though, yeah, Oscar didn't win today, that's still a great result for his championship.
I'm not going to quite say as good as a win, but I thought that was a pretty strong performance by Piastri today, especially considering Norris had been rapid all weekend. To then put in that performance on a Sunday was very good, especially when there was a decent amount of tyre dead. And I mean, last year Norris would have won this race by 15, 20 seconds. Yeah, just showing how much Piastri has improved this season.
Absolutely. And next week at Silverstone, McLaren, I expect, will be pretty much doing what they were doing today as long as it's dry. I don't see in the dry them being really challenged that much. But as we know at Silverstone, rain can fall, and in that case, then we could have Max Verstappen come into play. But again, in the dry, McLaren are just way too good at this moment in time. Thoughts on Tsunoda today? Absolutely terrible performance. Been terrible all weekend. Not much more you can say. Astra saying Alpine did say 5 race driver rotation. They also have Flavio Briatore as their team principal, and if you believe anything he says, then yeah.
He had no idea what was going to happen in a certain Singapore Grand Prix.
Yeah.
He had no idea. Yeah, what a twat.
It's still amazing to me that he's even allowed in the paddock. Never mind to be team boss of Alpine. G Walker saying congratulations, Sauber. Yeah, brilliant from them yet again. Sauber have scored 20 points in the last 3 races, I think. So, yeah, brilliant to see. Hopefully they keep it up. But I think, let me just finish up the poll results because we have a pretty clear winner. Driver of the day, 26 votes, 57% of the vote to Lando Norris, and then Hulkenberg, Lawson, and Ocon. Yeah, that was a good race. Not an absolute classic, but still a good one. And yeah, make sure, guys, to join us next week for the British Grand Prix at Silverstone. Nib, cheers for joining just about before we got underway. I know you had a hard day, so I knew that you were napping. But yeah, thankful obviously that you could still join us for what was a decent race.
My sixth sense woke me up 5 minutes before the Grand Prix. And honestly, like sometimes when you nap, you're like completely dead. But I was like, bang, wide awake. So, yeah, glad I could come on and actually watch the Grand Prix. And of course, I will. I'll see you next weekend.
Absolutely, let's hope for as good of a weekend as what we got at Silverstone last year. But yeah, cheers for coming on. And as well, cheers to you guys in the chat and for everyone watching for coming on for the streams this weekend. Before we go, make sure to subscribe to the channel for more content like this. Smash the like button as well. Make sure to check out some of my latest videos on the channel. Reminder that tomorrow I will be uploading, obviously, my podcast reviewing this Grand Prix. And then next weekend at Silverstone, I will be live for both qualifying and the race. I'll be live at 1:30 p.m. UK time for qualifying, and then live at 1 p.m. UK time on Sunday for the race. The race starting an hour later than this one next Sunday. So, yeah, make sure to join us for that next weekend for the British Grand Prix, a Grand Prix that always delivers classic races. But yeah, guys, thanks for this weekend. And until my podcast tomorrow and next weekend's British Grand Prix, the halfway point of the Formula One season, it has been me, Chazza HD. Goodbye.